What up, everybody? Good morning and happy Friday. TGIF. DK show up on the air on your radio dials 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Also available online, sportstalk1051.com, where you can stream it up over there. Your video stream's also up and rolling. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Don't forget to download that Sports Talk app and take it on the go. Take us on the go here. Appreciate you making us a part of your starts on this final Friday in the month of June before we head off for the weekend and such. What do we got on our game plan for us this morning? Going to talk some Brewers as the Brew Crew gets set to take on the Chicago Cubs for another 3-game series at AmFam Field in Milwaukee. So Brewers off day yesterday. They will now welcome Craig Counsell and company, the Chicago Cubs, who are 10.5 games back from the Brewers. Still sitting there in last place in the NL Central. No game yesterday, as I mentioned, but the Brewers moving up to 6.5 right now. 6.5 over the Cardinals and such. So, yesterday we talked. We did some grades, and we a lot of you, pretty much everybody, I think, had A for the Brewers. Looking back at the first half of the season, so now that we are getting set for the second half of this regular season, what is maybe the biggest question mark for this ball club? What is maybe the biggest question mark for this ball club moving forward? Maybe your biggest concern, if you have any. Now, I think a lot of us are probably going to agree it's, can the pitching hold up? Is the starting pitching good enough to not only get to the postseason, but win a series, win a couple series, make a deep run into the postseason? So maybe besides that, I think, majority of us would probably put that at number one. So is there anything else? Is there anything else that is maybe your biggest concern, the biggest question mark that you have for this team as we get set to kick off the second half of this season tonight against the Cubbies? Think about that for a little bit. And again, I think we all know, or majority of us, unless you have a different one, and send that one on over too. But if we all agree that it's pitching, what else would it be? I'll throw out some other ones. Is it health? Is it the health of this ball club? Can they stay healthy? Can their main players, whether it be Yelich, Contreras, Terang, Willie, those guys, or maybe it's some other pitchers, maybe it's a Hudson coming out of the bullpen, Freddie Peralta. Is it health? I think we can always make the case that health is one of the biggest issues out there, but is there any maybe question marks about the offense, considering some of the what we've seen in the first half of this offense so far when it's come to the Brewers? Are you, because I still feel like that maybe there's some skepticism, maybe a little apprehension surrounding this Brewers offense in terms of, are you a believer in what you have seen so far from the offense? Are you, or do you feel like, okay, I don't know if I'm ready to jump on board with the offense yet. I need to see a little bit more. Are you a little apprehensive that way? Or are you you know what? We've seen it for 81 games now. We've seen it for a first half of the season. I believe in this offense. I believe that this offense can continue to do what they are doing right now. All right, so let's talk about that coming up here in just a little bit, and we'll preview this series against the Cubbies. Reminder to the Brew Crew, after this series against the Cubs, we'll hit the road for 4 games against the Rockies, and then Dodgers next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend. Another good litmus test there for the Crew. So we'll talk some Brewers coming up here. Just a couple of position players for the Crew, by the way. Moving on in the All-Star voting, Contreras and Yelich reach phase 2 of the All-Star voting. Now, this isn't pitchers or anything like that. These are position players, but voting will resume on Monday. So if you want some representation there for the Brewers, make sure you get online and you go vote over there. But Yelich and Contreras, the two lone position players, moving on in phase 2 of this All-Star voting over there. So finalists will start the All-Star. Finalists to start the All-Star game is set. So, what else do we got here? We're gonna chat up with Dr. Crow coming up in under an hour from now. So we'll do a little inside the training room with Dr. Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Second round of the NBA draft concluded yesterday. I'll admit, I was a little surprised when I was like, "Oh man, it's already on!" Like afternoon on, sort of thing. I'm like, and then I'm sure we, debate last night and such. Maybe didn't want to go up against that or whatever, but nonetheless, I was like, "Oh crap, that's already on." So, but it happened. Bronny James getting drafted by the Lakers last night. For all the criticism, I've been a big one of that. Whether he has the talent to be drafted, whether he should be, draft selected. Is he one of the top 60 players in this draft? This, that, the other thing. We've criticized it. I've criticized it. No doubt about it. But it is still pretty darn cool. I think any dad, any parent would be pretty excited to potentially, hit the court with their own child too. So on the surface of that, that's pretty cool. But we'll see how it all kind of plays out. Bucks, meanwhile, they selected with the 33rd overall pick Tyler Smith. Tyler Smith, looking at some of he's from the G League Ignite. But was reading a little bit scouting reports here. This was from CBS Sports from David Cobb. His thoughts on the pick. The Bucks may have found a steal in power forward Tyler Smith, who ranked at number 21 in CBS Sports' NBA draft prospect rankings. The former five-star prospect hit 36% of his three-pointers in the Ignite program, which is an impressive which is impressive for a 6'9" player who is so big and athletic. This makes 2 non-college additions for the Bucks through the draft after they selected A.J. Johnson at number 23 on Wednesday. So, got that one. I've seen various stuff surrounding, this pick. Again, it's maybe a little bit more towards an eye towards the future. Maybe not necessarily, a pick that will or picks that will help the ball club right away. But they got their quote unquote, I guess, big, if you will, bigger one. I mean, they go guard in the first one. Now, I've seen 6'9", I've seen 6'11". Let's just split the difference between his height and maybe just call him 6'10", sort of thing. But this was another one, a pro comparison. Channing Frye, for all you Hoops fans back in the day, if you remember Channing Frye. But he earned, I was reading a little bit more from Bleacher Report, he earned NBA fans this year with his shot making for a 6'11" teenager and consistency against G Leaguers. His game is fairly simple and limited, but the combination of shooting and finishing tools should be useful and easy to fit offensively. So he has been playing professional basketball since he was 16 years old. He signed with the Overtime Elite in 2021 and spent 2 years with the club. So, all right. But that's a little bit there for your Bucks draft picks. Now that the NBA draft is in the books, now maybe the real full-on offseason kind of starts here for the for the Bucks. So, also we'll catch up with Brandon Berg, sports editor extraordinaire for the Chippewa Herald. We'll do a little local sports roundup with some coaches getting hired in our area and such. So we'll catch up with Brandon on that. Plus, obviously, we'll talk some more Brewers with B a little bit later on here too. So he's coming up. We'll get to that. We've got another couple matchups here for our bracket challenge. We're going to go back to the Brewers world. We'll announce that coming up after the break here. A reminder, you want to make sure that you're following along on Facebook and Twitter so that you can vote, because that's where the votes matter. All right. So we'll get you updated on who has advanced, as we are, I think, a little over halfway through the first round. I know the first round matchups can kind of get a little boring and dull, and let's just get this through and get to 32 and such. But, we're almost through this thing. So we'll get an interesting Brewers one coming up. At least I think they're interesting. And then some of the votes with how they go, it's like, yeah, no, not really. So, but we'll announce that coming up after the first break here. We'll go back to the Brewers region. And I think, are we going back to the Packers one too? I'll have to double check. During the break here. So get to that. We've got Cream of the Crop. Don't forget, you could play along with us for our Cream of the Crop. Give us your picks for Cream of the Crop. Hit us up with a text, 715-830-1912. Always join in on the conversation by hitting us up with a text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line at 715-830-1912. Or you can join the video chat over there too. So, all right, let's get things rolling here this morning, shall we? Let's talk a little baseball to open up things. Threw out a couple questions for you. So yesterday we graded the first half. We talked about the first half of this Brewer season. Now let's have an eye towards the second half. What is your biggest question mark? What is your biggest concern? Maybe what is the main thing you're looking forward to in the second half of this season? Again, the majority of us, if not all of us, would probably throw starting pitching out there, right? We'd probably throw that one out there as the biggest concern or biggest question mark. But what else? Does anybody, or do you have any concerns about the offense, questions still about the offense? Do you believe this is an offense that can continue to put up some of the numbers that they did in the first half here? So let's take a look at the second half. Also taking a look at this series against the Chicago Cubs. So we'll take our first break, and then we'll get things rolling on this Friday morning, all right? Join in on the convo, video streams, texting lines, whatever the case may be. I want to hear from you, all right? Quick break. We'll be back next. Are warmer temperatures this summer forcing you to move to a lower level of your home, maybe even your basement? Is it kind of a dull space, though, that you've been thinking about remodeling so that you can take advantage of that space more? Hey, that's a great idea. Now, the first step in remodeling a space, taking care of the floors. What style should you go with? What works best in your type of basement? Great questions. You know who can help you with those? That's Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire. If you're getting the itch to remodel that basement into a functioning living space, you want to make sure you have the right floor that not only looks great but functions the best and all at the best price. Well, hey, Carpet City Flooring Center can do all that for you and more. The awesome team at Carpet City Flooring Center will work with you to not only find the type of floor that would work the best in your space and look the best, they'll work with you to find what fits right in your budget. So what are you waiting for? Let's get to remodeling. Head on over to Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire today to get started. First matchup of the morning is now up on Facebook and Twitter. Go ahead and vote. Facebook.com/Kasper Sports, Kasper Sports, or Twitter/X at DANKASPER. We're going back to the Brewers region here. Corey Hart versus Mark Loretta. Corey Hart versus Mark Loretta. Who gets your vote? You got to vote online. But you can send me a text why you voted for so-and-so. Get some feedback there. Maybe make the case for so-and-so. I'll pass it along to the listeners. But who do you think is more underrated and should move on in the next round, in the round of 32? Corey Hart or Mark Loretta? All right, voting is now open. Again, Facebook and Twitter. All right, let's get things rolling here this morning. Talking some Brewers. What are your, yesterday we talked, about recapping the first half of the season, looking back, grading it, all that sort of stuff. Everybody, a lot of positive stuff to say about the crew, and rightfully so. But now let's take a look at the future, the second half of the season. What are the biggest question marks? What are maybe your biggest concerns? Do you have any surrounding this team? Knowing, and again, I think a lot of us would probably assume, or if we had to pick number one, be okay, pitching. Can starting pitching, is it good enough to not only just get to the postseason, but I think I could speak for a lot of Brewers fans and say we want to win some games now in the postseason. We want to win a series or a couple of series and make a deep run in the postseason. It's great to get there, but we've been getting there and not winning series since 2018. So is the pitching good enough to do that? I think that's probably fair to say that that's the main question. One of the main questions heading into the second half. Another one in there is going to be health. Brewers, especially when it's come to pitching and starting pitching, they've been hit hard with some injuries. Been hit hard with health. So in the second half, can they stay healthy? Can a lot of their main position players stay healthy? Contreras, Adames, Yelich, Ortiz, those guys, Hoskins, Terang, can they stay healthy in that second half? Knowing that, odds are they're probably some of these guys going to get a little dinged up and probably going to miss some time and such, which I think is probably to be expected. But hopefully it's nothing that keeps them out long term, nothing that is too serious. So pitching and health, I think, are out there. But what else? Is there anything else? And I think one of them I want to really throw out to you is, do you trust the offense? From what you've seen in the first half, have you seen enough from the offense to say, yep, I fully trust that they can continue to do what they're doing in that second half? Because I feel like, maybe not a lot, but I still feel like there's maybe a little apprehensive, maybe a little like, I don't know if I want to jump fully on board yet with the offense and such. Are they good enough? You got the trade deadline coming up in about a month. Do you think they need to make another move? I mean, one positive, really quick, Garrett Mitchell, Yesterday we talked about he left the game early due to a hamstring, and then he was in the lineup yesterday. So, but do you think they're good without? Do you think they need to add another piece? Do you want them to add another piece before the deadline? At what position? Is it mostly just depth, backup sort of stuff? What are your thoughts on the offense? Going forward for this second half, for that push to get in the postseason and to win some ball games. Looking at this second half also too, we talk about health and we talk about pitching. They're going to get some reinforcements back. They're going to get Devin Williams back. He's going to come back. And that trickle-down effect, assuming that he pitches to the level that we expect from Devin Williams, that all-star, that one of the best closers in the game type of level, that really solidifies kind of the back end of the bullpen. Because if he goes out there, you're going to put him, and I don't know if they'll start him right away at closer. Go out there. Maybe he comes in and, seventh, sixth, whatever situation, just to kind of get his feet wet a little bit. But all things go well, you got Devin closing it down. McGill's probably going out there, in the eighth, kind of been the quote unquote closer right now. You got Hudson, who is kind of the 2018 hater type of role where he can go give you a couple innings, sixth, seventh, something like that. I mean, you kind of have that trickle down effect with the bullpen when Devin comes back. So you're getting kind of a trade with Devin Williams coming, because we haven't seen him at all this year. We haven't seen him at any point. So I mean, your potential, that's going to be a big boost to that bullpen. We'll see about some other guys coming back here. We saw Jacob Junis back in the lineup. DL Hall, will we see him back at all this year? I know he's kind of been close and having some setbacks and this, that, the other thing. So we're hoping to get some guys. We're expecting to get some guys who have been banged up a little bit back with this team. I think one of the other questions that I may have heading into this second half now, into the second half of this season, is I'm curious to see how Jackson Chourio does. Rookie getting into this playoff push now. Can he continue to get better? Can he continue to develop, but also still help the ball club win games and get to the postseason and win some games in the postseason? Are we going to see Terang continue to do what he's been doing in the first half of this offense, continuing to get on base, continuing to steal bases? Are we going to see Christian Yelich continuing to do what he's doing at the plate? I think when it comes to the offensive side of things, maybe the biggest question for me is, are we just going to continue to see what these guys have been able to do in that first half? Because if they can continue to do that, then I've got no concerns, obviously, with the offense. But is it Joey Ortiz, who has maybe kind of surprised a lot of us, surprised a lot of people in terms of what he's been able to do at the plate? We constantly heard about, his defensive skills, right? We constantly heard about that. But I think it's been a nice surprise to see what he's been able to do from the plate on an offensive side standpoint. So is he going to continue to do that? This is a younger team. We've talked about some of the young guys stepping up. Yes, you have a Yelich and you have a Rhys Hoskins who have been in the postseason and won some games in the postseason and such. Sal Frelick, though, Joey Ortiz, Bryce Terang a little bit last year, Contreras, still young, he's got a little bit of experience. Still got some young dudes up there. Are they going to be able to help push this team into the postseason and, still play at the high level that they've been doing so far this season? Freddie Peralta, second half here. I want to see Freddie Peralta go out there and be a little bit more consistent. I mean, when he's on, when he's on, he's got some good stuff. He looks fantastic. But when we get to that postseason, if the Brewers are able to get to that postseason and we got to set that rotation, I want to be able to feel confident about Freddie Peralta from what we see in the second half when we get to that postseason. I just want to see some consistency. I want to see him kind of, really solidify he's that number one dude. Colin Ray had a great first half of this season. We're going to see him tonight. Is that something that he can continue in the second half? Tobias Myers is pitching incredibly hot right now. 5-2, 3.12 ERA. We're going to see him tomorrow. He's on a 4-game win streak right now. He's won his last 4 starts, I believe. Youngster, rookie. Are we going to continue to see that from him in the second half? When you look at these pitchers, this is a big second half for these starters. What the heck are we going to get from a guy like Dallas Keuchel in the second half? I honestly don't know what we're going to get from Dallas Keuchel. But I look at these 3 pitchers that we're going to see this weekend against the Cubbies as 3 guys that are incredibly important for this rotation right now, for this team to continue to stack up wins, to win the division, to get to the postseason, but also just to win some games in the postseason. I think it's these 3 right now that we're going to see. Freddie, Colin Ray, Tobias Myers this weekend, Bryce Wilson. He's coming off of a great game here too. But to me, it's these 3 that kind of right now are at the head of the pack of this rotation that have to continue, in Colin Ray's case and Tobias Myers' case, continue to pitch at a high level, continue to have that confidence to go out there and have these good games. Freddie Peralta, like to see him be a little bit more consistent and really solidify himself as that number 1 guy. Those are kind of the 3 main starters that I'm looking at for this second half to, maybe step it up or take another step, I should say, or just really continue to solidify what they've been doing in the case of Tobias Myers and Colin Ray. Looking at tonight's game, we've got Colin Ray on the mound. A guy that I think, again, has surpassed a lot of expectations from what we've seen from him so far this season. Colin Ray, 6-2, 3.62 ERA. He is coming off of a no decision where he gave up 5 earned runs against the Padres. But before that, his couple games before that against Cincinnati, picked up a win, 6 innings, 2 earned runs. Another win against Toronto, 7 innings, 1 earned run. Pittsburgh, 4 innings, no earned runs. So he's looking for a bounce-back game tonight, no question about it. But when you look at what he's done overall this season, yeah, he's had a couple hiccups, but what pitcher hasn't had a couple of hiccups? Middle of May, he kind of had that little bit of a stretch where he gave up 4 earned runs, 3 earned runs, 5 earned runs, and then you're kind of like, maybe you're getting a little nervous every time he goes out there on the mound. But I thought he's settled down nicely after that. After that stretch in the middle of May, 2 earned runs, 1, 0, 1, 2, and then the hiccup against the Padres there. So looking for a bounce back game for him tonight, since that Padres game there. But again, this is going to be a staff that needs him, because I don't see the Brewers being a team that's going to acquire like 2 or 3 starters by the deadline and trying to replace Colin Ray. Colin Ray is going to be in this rotation for the second half of the season and into the postseason. So the Brewers need him to continue to be a pretty darn solid starter, pretty darn good starter in this rotation. So I want to see him continue to grow and continue to take steps, because this team is they need him. They're gonna need him in big moments. He might be right now the number 2 starter in his rotation, number 2 or number 3 at the lowest. Another guy that we're going to see on Saturday, Tobias Myers, who has been just fantastic as of late. A guy again who called up because of injuries earlier part of the season. now I think has really solidified his spot in the rotation. After getting called up at the end of April, pitched a couple games in May, sent back down, came back because of some injuries to the rotation. But the month of June has been the month of Tobias. 4-0 in 4 games with a .71 ERA. 4-0 with a sub-1 ERA in 4 games in the month of June. Detroit, 8 innings, no earned runs. Toronto, 6, 1 earned run. Angels, 6 1/3, 1 earned run. And then his previous start, that lone win against the Padres in that 4-game series this previous Sunday, 5 innings, 1 earned run. Guy who, man, if he could continue, asking him to keep doing what he's doing so far in the month of June is a tough task. It's a tall task. It's not a likely task. He's going to have his games that he's going to want back. There's no question. It's going to happen. It happens to every pitcher out there. But let's say we get 75% of this, like every 3 out of 4 starts for Tobias, he's out there 1 earned run, giving up 1 earned run and such. I'd take that in a heartbeat. No question. Got a lot's going to be on the shoulders of this youngster now because he's gone out there in the month of June and put up these crazy good numbers. And he's going to get an opportunity to stay in this rotation, but also to be a big part of the starting rotation. So now with the second half here, now that the pressure starts to build up a little bit more, he's going to be a guy that's going to be a top 3 starter as of right now in this rotation. A team that's in first place, a team that's got postseason aspirations, winning games in the postseason. How's the youngster handle it? How's he handle that little extra pressure over there? Little extra pressure. All right, we got to take a quick break here. Join in on the convo. You can hit us up with some texts if you like. We'll check those out here in just a skosh. Otherwise, hit us up on the video stream, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all those good places there too. So, but keep your thoughts coming on the Brewers. Second half questions. What are maybe your biggest question marks heading into the second half of the season? Biggest concerns? Do you have any? And then on the offense, have you seen enough with the first half? Do you have the confidence in this offense that they can go out there, that this offense can continue to go out there and put up some of the numbers that they have so far this year? Let me know. Hit me up with a text quick, and then we'll update you on some of the poll or the first matchup on our poll question. Back to the Brewers region here. Again, Twitter's a little bit different than how the Facebook voting is going. A lot of votes so far on Twitter /X, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, we got Corey Hart versus Mark Loretta. Who do you think is more underrated? More underrated. All right. Got to vote on Facebook or Twitter. We'll take a maybe. Come on. There we go. Quick break, and then we'll finish up the first hour after these few words. As we approach July here, July can get pretty hot, especially here in Wisconsin. Not only does it affect us, though, but it affects your vehicle too. Help your vehicle prepare for a hot Wisconsin summer by making sure it's up to date with its oil changes by making that appointment with ASAP Used Auto Parts in Eau Claire. If it's been a while since your vehicle went through an oil change, well, hey, that summer heat can have negative effects on your vehicle. So make your appointment with ASAP Used Auto Parts to get some fresh oil to help your vehicle run smooth this summer. And get some new tires from ASAP Used Auto Parts too while you're at it. All right, get some new tires over there. Maybe save some money on some high quality used auto parts if you do some of the fixing up yourself, or maybe you got a project car over there too. So I believe they got a car show coming up in July. I have to double check that with the team over there at ASAP Used Auto Parts. So quick update on the first matchup this morning for our who's most underrated Wisconsin sports athlete of all time. A Brewers matchup. We're back in the Brewers region because we've gotten at 4 matchups in the books already in each region. So this is the 5th one to come through the Brewers one. We're almost done with the Brewers one. But Corey Hart versus Mark Loretta. Twitter is more. Twitter's closer, a lot closer than how the Facebook voting is going so far. I think Brandon's going to have a heart attack when he finds out where some of the numbers are going with this one. But Twitter so far, Corey Hart, 57% of the vote. Mark Loretta got 43. Corey Hart so far dominating in the Facebook one, 84% for Corey Hart. So we'll let Brandon, I believe Brandon's going to make the case for Mark Loretta. But quick numbers, if you just want some reminders here for Mark Loretta began his career in Milwaukee for 8 years. He ended up with a 289. We're just looking at the Brewers numbers here. 289 he hit for the Brewers. 29 home runs. Yeah, 29 home runs. Just looking at some of the offensive numbers. On base percentage, he was a 355, slugging 385, OPS of 740. Corey Hart, meanwhile, in his 9 years with the Brewers, hit 154 home runs, 276 hitter, an 824 OPS, 491 slugging, 334 on base percentage. So again, if you want to vote, you want your vote to count, got to do it on Facebook and Twitter. All right, Facebook and Twitter. So if you want to make a case why you voted for so and so, you can text those on over, and I will relay those to the rest of the world out there. So coming up after 7 o'clock here, we're going to catch up with Dr. Crow for a little inside the training room, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. We'll talk a little Bucks here in just a skosh as they wrapped up the second round of the draft yesterday. Tell you a little bit about their pick at number 33 overall. And then we'll do some local sports roundup too with Brandon coming up in the next couple of hours here. Don't forget to send over your cream of the crops. Quick note, I am out all next week taking a little vacay. So just a quick heads up, I am out all of next week. So no programs tomorrow. All right, no programs next week, excuse me, but we'll be back on July 8th over there. So just want a little bit of a note to pass along there. So if you hear something different on Monday morning, it's because I'm going to be out using up some vacay days out there. So, but the Bucks last night, second rounds picking up. I guess they're big. Again, this is it happens in the NFL draft too. When you look at the measurables, you get some conflicting stuff. And for the Bucks, it was kind of that way last night with 19-year-old Tyler Smith. I've seen 6'11". I think I've seen 6'11" more than what I've seen 6'9" and such. But Tyler Smith was the selection at number 33 overall. Another youngster that the Bucks used their draft picks on. And when you look at some of the and I feel like this feedback has been a little bit better than what their first pick was with AJ Johnson. Sam Vanisi, big time basketball guy, and I saw this. This was a quote from his podcast a few weeks ago. But he said Tyler Smith was one of the worst defenders in this class. Smith is a serious project whom I can understand a team falling in love with developmentally. His jumper is a significant weapon for his size. He'll knock down shots throughout his career, and that's meaningful at the 4 or potentially at the 5 if he can get much stronger. However, his measurements in game make him too much of a tweener between the 4 and 5 spots right now. He's not strong or physical enough to play the 5, but also doesn't possess enough all-around skill to play the 4 yet. That's where the leap needs to come for Smith. He needs to become more capable of putting the ball on the ground, making positive reads, processing the game, and making an impact on the perimeter beyond shooting. That's where he should fit best in the modern league. On top of that, he'll need to make significant defensive strides because this year was a struggle on that end. That's okay. He was a teenager playing professional basketball for the first time, but it also makes him a significant project. Certain teams will be more willing to take that plunge and see if they can get the most out of Smith's physical tools. Others won't want to take the time to develop him on defense. He seems like a player who will likely play in the NBA for a while, but might end up working out better for the second team that gets him opposed to the first team. So, again, though, he was ranked for some people top 25. Saw him at the back end of some mock drafts for the first round and such. But overall, I think it's fair to say the Bucks with their first two picks, don't expect to see them on the court this year. They're developmental picks. Now, again, it goes to the question of, okay, if this draft class was quote unquote weak, wasn't a very deep one, wasn't a very good one overall. If that's the case, were the Bucks then, were they smart to maybe think about, okay, we know this class isn't good. We know that it's not very deep. It's not filled with guys who can contribute right now. So instead of maybe forcing it and hoping we get a guy that can contribute and it works out, we're going to use our 2 picks for guys who maybe project better a couple years down the road. Instead of, maybe reaching on some guys because maybe they're ready to play now, but they're not that talented. We're going to use the picks to go and get a couple guys, and we're going to trust our developmental process and build them up. The downfall on that, though, is, one, you're not getting a guy to help you out when you are in a championship or bust season right now. And I know you can't really, you got to draft who's out there. You got to draft who's available. Yes, you can trade your picks and such. But, I mean, you got to – this is the crop of players that you have to choose from. So you really don't have a choice in the matter of the talent that you have to select from. But you also, if that's your plan, you got to be patient then. So how do you juggle the fact of, okay, we're going to develop these guys, but you got to be patient, but yet you also got to win now. You don't have like, okay, a window here. It's not like you can't go back to the phrase of own the future. No, that doesn't work. It's now with Giannis and Dame and those guys. So you got to balance it of like, okay, how do we put together a team right now that wins a championship, but also kind of getting ready for the future? We need youngsters who can contribute right now. These 2 youngsters can't contribute right now. From everybody that's knows these guys, knows these prospects, studies them, scouts them, majority say they're not ready right now. So if that's the case, this just makes this offseason for John Horst, general manager of the Bucks, even more important, more difficult, more crucial. What is he going to do? Because right now, would you say the Bucks are a top 2 team in the East? top 3 or top 4? Probably top 4, maybe top 3. Are they above the Knicks right now? Are they better than the Knicks? Are they better than the Celtics? I mean, I'm assuming we would all put the Celtics still at number 1, but with the Knicks making moves, do they go up to number 2? What about the Pacers with their youth over there? Are the Bucks a top 3, top 4 team in the Eastern Conference? You'd like to think so with Dame and Giannis, but do you trust them to beat the Celtics in a 7-game series? Do you trust them right now to beat the Knicks in a 7-game series? To get to the finals? I think that's a question mark right now. So, I mean, this is boy, this offseason just got a little bit more intriguing, maybe a little bit more tougher for Horse now too. A lot is going to be on the shoulders of one Giannis and Dame, and the Bucks better hope that those guys can stay healthy for big part of the season, and especially getting into the postseason. Guys, they don't look like right now they're going to have a whole lot of help elsewhere. All right, we got less than a minute here, so we'll get to a little inside the training room coming up in just a few minutes. Then we'll get to Brandon and such, and we'll get back to some more Brewers talk. Looking ahead to second half, we recapped, we graded the first half yesterday. Now we have an eye to the future as the second half officially gets underway tonight as they welcome the Chicago Cubbies to AmFam Field again. Biggest question mark, biggest concern for the crew as we head into the second half of the season. Let me know what's on your mind. Probably know that pitching is up there, but anything else? Probably health is up there too. Anything else? Offense? Do you have any concerns with the offense heading into the second half of this season? Let me know. All right. Join in the convo. Text it, tweet it, comment on the video stream, whatever floats your boat. All right. One in. We got 2 more to go here. Got some news updates here, and then we'll get things started. Stick around. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
and milk powder coming in from the outside. In fact, last month, China's imports of whole milk powder were down 33%, the lowest amount in May since 2017. And their skim milk powder imports were down 52%, with China's total powder imports at their lowest levels in 9 years. And Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack and his legal staff still trying to get some competitive issues challenged and changed in the Packers and Stockyards Act. Earlier this week, the USDA proposed a new rule for the act aimed at what they call an injury to competition issues in lawsuits filed by livestock producers against the Packers and Stockyards Act. That's a look at some of our food and farm news this morning on Sports Talk 105.1 and AM 790. I'm Bob Bosold.
The weather has been warmer, and you've been outside taking advantage of this nice weather. And maybe you thought you still had one more year left to play in that softball league again, but then you realized you don't. Those aches and pains are back. So it's time to visit Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine will help treat your aches and pains so you can live that pain-free and healthy life. Schedule your appointment at Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine by visiting cvosm.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, sports aficionados and armchair quarterbacks, welcome to the Dan Kasper Show, where sports passion meets expert analysis. Dan's encyclopedic knowledge and infectious passion for all things sports is both impressive and sad.
I have many leather-bound books.
So get ready to laugh, cheer, and maybe even facepalm a few times.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
It's the Dan Kasper Show.
Second half on this Friday morning, the final Friday of June, coming at you. Appreciate you tuning in wherever, however you're checking us out from. Coming up, we'll catch up with Brandon Berg. We're going to do a little local sports roundup with him too, because we got some new coaches and getting hired on the local side of things. So we'll get to that coming up here in just a little bit. We'll get back to some more Brewers chat as the Crew starting their second half of the season with the series with the Cubs tonight. Before that, though, it's time for a little inside the training room.
Paging Dr. Crow. Breaking down the latest in sports injuries. It's time for Inside the Training Room with Dr. Crow.
You better call me a doctor.
On the Dan Kasper Show.
Somebody give me a doctor.
He is Dr. Crow for Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, joining us this morning. How you doing, Austin?
I'm doing great.
Atta boy. Hey, let's lead off with the NBA. So Porzingis, he had surgery. I know we talked about his injury. I'm not even going to try to repeat what that thing was called here this morning. So, but he did have surgery, and he's expected to return to play in 5 to 6 months, they said, which would go into the upcoming NBA season. Obviously, he's going to be out for the Olympics. But with this surgery and with this recovery, what's the prognosis typically for a full recovery and kind of back to his high level of play?
Yeah, again, this is a rare injury. I know we talked about that last time. There is a very similar injury on the outer side of the ankle, so I'll take the word for you here. It's a retinaculum. So again, the retinaculum is basically a covering that helps the tendon glide in the correct path. So on the outer part of the ankle, the peroneal tendons are very commonly injured with people who have repeated ankle sprains. So you get what's called peroneal subluxation, and that's from a lateral retinacular injury. We see those commonly. Medial side, in fact, I don't know if I've seen one in my career where you have the posterior tibial tendon, or there's a couple of tendons that run through there. That same thing, it's a retinaculum, so it's the same kind of covering, and that injury is there. So point being, I guess you could probably say it's going to be similar to a lateral retinacular injury and repair, because those are successful. So the answer, if it's acting like that, it should have a pretty high likelihood that he gets back fully. But again, it is uncommon, so it's probably a little bit less predictable. But I would guess he bounces back pretty well from that.
With the Olympics coming up here, and especially staying with basketball, given how we're all about load management now, or at least the NBA teams are about load management, do you think it's a little surprising that maybe some teams are still like maybe not trying to close the door on some of these guys going to the Olympics and playing in it because they don't want them to get injured?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you look at the kind of big picture, Olympics are huge, right? So, I mean,
Hmm.
it's a chance for an athlete to represent their country. So, I'm sure it's important, and there probably is some back and forth on that. I mean, there have been teams that have said that to their athletes, we don't want you doing it. But at the end of the day, I don't think they really can control, unless they had something written specifically in their contract. I don't think they could really control them doing that. But, I mean, there are guys who are going to get injured. Let's be honest. I mean, it's going to be exposure to athletics, and injuries happen with that. Whether it's acute injuries or overuse injuries, those are all things. And it's really clearly very much shortened the off season for them. I mean, it's really going to be like they're going to be playing almost year-round basketball.
Right.
So yeah, you look at it and say that's probably going to be a potential detriment. But I think some of these athletes probably consider the Olympics to be, darn near as important as the NBA season for them. It's only every 4 years. It's your whole country you're representing. I mean, I think all kids kind of grow up wanting to win a gold medal for their country. So it's something that I think probably is pretty high on their list of things they want to do.
Right. To baseball here with going to the Brewers here. So Devin Williams, we know the All-Star closer. Back in March, it was announced he was out with stress fractures in his back, and we haven't seen him yet. Although it sounds like this week he's going to do some bullpen work, and they're hoping at the end of July. Now he had stress fractures on the left and right sides of his T12 vertebrae. This was back in March, and they're hoping maybe at the end of July. Is that a kind of a typical timeline, or is that a little bit longer here because he didn't have surgery with this?
Yeah. Surgery is usually not required for that. So what it is you have the areas of the spine that kind of load with the posterior part called the facets, and so in between the facets there's a little area called the pars, and so that pars sees a lot of stress. So it is I guess, relatively common. So not that stress fractures in the back are rare, but if they do happen, they virtually always happen in the pars. So we see that. So looking at the timeline, that makes sense because you need it to heal, and then really you also have to look at the mechanics that put you in that spot in the first place. So they probably are going to try to work on that as well. So it's going to be a combined recovery, if you will, to get him back to take care of the acute injury and then also hopefully help prevent any recurrence.
With stress fractures, is there any? You just mentioned repeat occurrence. Is there a concern about that happening when it comes to stress fractures, especially when you don't have surgery to correct those?
In a lot of parts of the body, once they resolve, they're gone. But I will say, we sometimes see pars injuries recur in younger athletes, and that's a little bit different. The pars injuries for young athletes tend to be in the lower lumbar spine. His was, I believe, in the thoracic spine, which is a pretty atypical place to get it, to be honest with you. But it really has to do with, again, these kind of stresses that are repeatedly applied to the back, which clearly in this case is from throwing. So there's something with his mechanics that are doing that. So, it's like a golfer and changing their golf swing. I don't think you can always just snap your finger and be like, change, right? So
Mhm.
for a pitcher to be like, just throw differently, that's probably a tall order. So I think in this case, there probably is some concern for recurrence. So they're really likely going to push it to say, get it fully healed and then make some adjustment to either rehab protocols or the actual throwing mechanics.
We had a texter a little bit earlier wanted me to ask you this. I know it's something we've kind of touched on in the past, but generally, this texter had asked about your thoughts on what seems like an increase in pitcher injuries this year. And I know we kind of talked about that off and on, and there's been some reporting on that and such, and trying to figure it out if it's the pitch clock that's causing that and such. But I mean, is it just simply as to kind of revisit it? Guys throwing harder and throwing more of a variety of pitches that put a little bit more wear and tear on their elbows and shoulders.
I think that's really sums it up nicely. I mean, to me, it's the velocity and the speed that they're throwing. The pitch clock. I don't know. I mean, I just don't see how a couple extra seconds of recovery is really going to make a radical difference
Mm-hmm.
in these injuries. I mean, so could it play a role? I guess. I mean, at some point they're going to, once they have enough data, they'll look at this. I mean, I promise you there's being research on it right now. They're looking at injury rates Of course, there's always statistical variance. So you go season to season, there's seasons where there's a lot and there's seasons where there's not a lot. And it doesn't always mean something's changed, just that's some natural ebb and flow. That's how statistics work. So it is possible just seeing a blip. And the other thing is often if it's a more notable athlete that's injured, it certainly draws your attention. So it brings to the forefront of your kind of thoughts. And so then it's like, wow, we're seeing a lot of them. So I don't know if the data actually suggests that there is more or not. Maybe there is. But to me, I think the overall trend is that pitchers are just throwing harder and harder and harder. And on at the youth level, it's also just year-round play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why there's been this huge spike over the past decade plus of especially UCL injuries in the elbow for young athletes. So these teenager pitchers it's just because they're throwing 9 months of the year, things like that. So that is the one benefit in the upper Midwest here is we have seasons, and that does tend to nip that a little bit, but there's indoor teams and practices. And so we do see that. So I'm a big advocate for 3-sport athletes just because you simply work different parts of the body and can give the body rest. And it's just a little bit healthier way to approach it.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, Jason Kelsey, to kind of wrap some things up here this morning, he did an interview and he kind of talked about all the different injuries he suffered throughout his career. He said, quote, everybody exits the league with some type of impediment. I've had twice reconstructed right knee, a surgery on my hand, my groin, broken toes. I've had my share of things that have gone wrong, not to mention just the wear and tear of playing 13 years in the NFL. For a guy like that who played offensive lineman, tush push, and, he was at the center of it all, pun intended with the position, I guess. But,
Yeah.
but, when we talk about these football players and the types of injuries that they go or suffer in surgeries, are they increased for stuff like arthritis, maybe as they get older, or what are some of the other negative side effects from all these injuries that they suffered that could it come back to bite them as they get a little bit older?
The answer is absolutely. It's twofold. So the first one would be actual injuries. So anytime you injure a joint, there's a level of inflammation that occurs. That's not good for the joint. Certainly if you have a surgery or a fracture that goes to the joint, then you're really increasing the risk of what's called post-traumatic arthritis. So yes, injuries do impart extra stress and damage to joints. And then what they're trying to do with their bodies, I mean, they're 300, or in his case, a 300 plus pound guy trying to push around other 300 plus pound guys. So that puts extra wear and tear. And then lastly, just simply the size of these human beings. So if you look at anyone that big, they're also going to be putting more stress on their body. So they're just innately, so even if they weren't a pro athlete, if they're that big, there's a correlation with size and arthritic conditions as well. So you look at it, and I mean, there are a lot of pro athletes that are getting joints replaced or have some level of, debilitation related to those kind of things, the quote wear and tear, or just again post-traumatic arthritis related to joint injuries. So there's no question that they put their bodies on the line and they do pay the price. I mean, they're obviously rewarded handsomely financially, a lot of them, but not all. I mean, there are guys who just try to fight through the league, and they're the ones who are left in a tough spot where it's like their bodies took the hit, but they just didn't get the payday at the end. And so I know there's been a push for increasing some of the insurance funds and things like that for injured athletes. And I think that's important to remember that they definitely have a much higher incidence of those kind of things. So it's multifactorial for sure. But guys who've had, certainly, for example, his knee that's had 2 reconstructive surgeries, that knee has a pretty high likelihood at some point in his life of developing significant arthritis in it.
So last question, when we see these guys, I'm thinking like Larry McCarron or other dudes whose fingers are like sideways with that. Is that because they didn't get it fixed, or is that just, and why can't they get it fixed now? You know what I mean? That might be a dumb question, but like, why can't Larry McCarron get his finger fixed so it's not sideways and creeping everybody out when he holds it up?
It is intense, isn't it? The answer is generally those did begin with neglect of an injury. So it certainly doesn't always start like that, where it's like either chronically dislocated or sublux joint. But often it'll be kind of more mild, and then they play through and it gets worse and worse. And so a lot of those injuries, if you don't treat them acutely, there's not a lot of great late reconstructive options other than fusion. So the answer to that would be to fuse that joint, and that would work well then he just wouldn't have motion through that joint. But it's pretty well tolerated in the fingers, actually, because you have so many knuckles. And so the joints around it or the knuckles around it can compensate. So fusions in the finger do pretty well, but it's surgery. And the interesting thing is often that's not very painful. You look at it and it must be like, how in the world
Yeah.
can that guy even do anything? But I've seen a number of patients who have fingers like that, and they're just kind of like, it's the way it is. It's not as bad as you think. Now, eventually they will start developing wear in that joint, and that's when they'll often say, okay, fine, now that it hurts, I'm going to do something about it. But yeah, the answer is they could get it fused at any point and straighten it right on out. But at this point, it's probably a bit of a party trick for him too.
Well, yeah, and then I was wondering, is it like almost a badge of honor, like wrestlers with like cauliflower ear, over there?
Yeah.
So.
Oh, for sure. I mean, cauliflower ear, that's boxers, wrestlers,
Mhm.
MMA, they get it. If they're treated appropriately, you never get it. But it is a bit of a badge of honor that they often will neglect it for the reason to actually have it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think guys are doing that with their fingers necessarily, but at this point, yeah, I mean, he certainly could have it addressed. He just is electing not to. It's his choice, of course.
Right, exactly. He's Dr. Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Dude, appreciate the time as always. Have a very, very good 4th of July weekend next week, buddy. Enjoy it. Have fun on the golf course, and we'll catch up with you soon, okay?
Absolutely. You take care.
You got it. Dr. Crow, inside the training room, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, joining us here this morning. We'll take a quick break, and we've got Brandon Berg in studio coming up in just a couple minutes. Summer is in full swing. Are you stocked up and prepared with the kids staying home this summer, family vacations planned, and ball games to go to? Your pantries and cupboards are probably looking a little bit bare these days. Hey, save some money and stock up this summer by doing your shopping at Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Not only will you be able to get the best deals on the best items in your area, you can do some extra savings with Hy-Vee's fuel perks. Save money on groceries and gas. That's a win-win situation. Get to shopping right now at Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Speaking of Hy-Vee and such, Hy-Vee, I'm calling it, Brandon, the Champions Meal sponsor instead of just the generic lunch sponsor.
Champions Meal?
Yeah, Champions Meal. Because we're all champions.
We're all
at
champions
at the Kasper Classic.
And it's
there,
a champion. It's a champion caliber meal. It is really good.
It is really good. They do a fantastic job with the grills.
You should not. If you go away not full, that's your own darn fault.
Exactly. Well said there. So, Hy-Vee, the Champions Meal sponsors for the 4th annual Kasper Classic. We've got the Green Jacket sponsor, Muldoon's Menswear, where we're starting a new tradition that every year we will be awarding a green jacket to somebody who has been a big supporter of Backyard Dreams or the golf outing. So we got first up for this year, Gemco Surfaces, our putting green sponsor, Title Belt sponsor, Resonance Branding Company, our beverage sponsors, Park Ridge Distributing, Hole sponsors, Carpet City Flooring Center, The Elbow Room, Edward Jones Financial Advisor, Kelsey Nikolai, Doodah Gin, Hannah Sellner Agency, American Family Insurance, Shepke Chiropractic, Shoe Doctors, Service Master, Chippewa Valley, and AJM Automotive Service. Actually, my truck is over there right now.
I was going to ask when I drove in because it's not here.
It's not here. Getting some brakes done.
There we go. Hey.
I don't know why. Maybe you're like this, or maybe I just worry too much. Whenever I don't have my vehicle, I feel like my kid's gone, and I get a little nervous. And I'm like, okay, I want it back. So, but I don't. Are you the same way?
I can be, yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's in good hands. They're putting some new brakes on there. So, looking forward to getting it back though. But driving around the old man cave though too. So
there you go.
Getting
free advertising.
All right, exactly. So, Brandon, let's quickly do a little local sports roundup just because we got some news, and I know you just there's a good story that you just got up on Chippewa.com, but Chippewa Falls has a new hockey coach.
Yes,
new hockey coach. Tell us a little bit about him, quick.
Yeah, Matt Lukowitz, a long-term fixture in Chippewa Falls, played for the Cardinals under previous coach Scott Parker in the 90s, helped the Cardinals get to state a couple times. More recent years, he's been a big part of the youth program.
Okay.
So a lot of these kids that he will be coming in to coach, he's actually coached in the youth levels. So, I mean, that was something in talking with him, you can understand, feel is a good advantage for him. He's not having to learn necessarily a big group of people for the first time, and the families and all that go into it. So, I mean, he's someone that's going to come in and, a lot of kind of the tenets, the pillars that, Scott Parker established with the Cardinals, he wants to continue. He wants to keep going with. I mean, they're going to be a team that's, focused on defense, a team that's, playing hard, a team that's, doing all of those kind of little things to lead to big things like it did last year when the Cardinals, reached the state tournament. So, just a guy that's familiar as coach, I've coached a few years in the program as a volunteer under Coach Parker. So, I mean, a guy that's coming in with a full understanding of what goes into the, what kind of makes the Cardinal program and, kind of the different facets of it and kind of knows the different pieces of it. So I think that's going to be a big help for him. It's about kind of putting together the coaching staff. He's hopeful they can have that in place by the time they have contact days coming up next month.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, and then you kind of go from there.
Yeah. I know I know it's not quite in your neck of the woods, but same conference. Eau Claire North's got their new basketball coach, Logan Horn. Is going to be over there.
And with Coach Horn joining the Huskies, I mean, that's a Huskies team that is really, it's going to have some, good players coming back this coming year, a team that really got better as the year went on. And by the end of the year, they were playing some really good basketball. So that's a good spot to jump in. And I mean, there's kind of a couple new coaches in the Big Rivers with Menominee also hiring Greg Van Grunsven, the former Bloomer coach, but also a former coach in the conference, had coached previously at Eau Claire Memorial.
And Regis too, I believe a little bit. I was reading under it too.
But Coach Van Grunsven's won a lot of games. This past year helped Bloomer win the Western Cloverville, also won a Heart of North title earlier on in his tenure. I mean, he's just a veteran coach. He's kind of seen it all. He's kind of done it all. So that's a good get for Menominee after previous coach Matt Rowley is now the athletic director there, I believe. So
does that mean Bloomer's going to be looking for a new coach?
Correct.
Or? Okay.
Correct. And they'll have some returners coming back next year with Zeke Strand, who actually just a little bit early this summer picked up a preferred walk-on offer from the Wisconsin football team.
Oh, nice.
So Colin Crane, some other guys there too. So that Bloomer team is going to be, whoever ends up with that job, they're going to have some good athletes to work with there as well. But yeah, this is kind of the the time of year where you'll see this sometimes. I know there's some other coach or some other schools that have new coaches, like Holcomb Boys have a new coach with David Engel, who coached there previously. So he's jumping back into a situation he's familiar with. There's some other coaches as well. For Oliva Strum girls basketball, they hired Dave Huzica, who's the former cadet girls coach, who had a lot of success with the Hornets. Really helped that program kind of go to reach a level it had not had in the 21st century. So Oliva Strum's getting a good veteran coach and a coach also that's just a veteran of the of like the AAU level as well. So yeah, just kind of a fair amount of movement this time of year, as you'll often get.
Right. And then another accolade for Coach Reykjavik.
Yeah.
Was it
the NHS Coaches Association Hall of Fame?
So the national one.
Yes, the National Hall of Fame.
Hall
So
of
him
Fame.
and there's 2 coaches from the state of Wisconsin this year that'll be a part of that next class. So I mean, yeah, it's just it's for him. It's another. I mean, he's in the Wisconsin Football Coaches Association Hall of Fame. He's won other accolades from the WFCA, also from his alma mater, UW Superior. I mean, he's. I actually just talked with him a little bit earlier this week, not about that, but we were talking about something else. And I mean, at this point, he's getting ready to start year 51 this coming year.
Yeah.
Year 37, 38. I forget which one it is for in Chippewa. I mean, he's, I hope he's not listening because I don't want him to make me think I'm making him feel old. But when he was hired to be the Chippewa Falls football coach, I was not 1 year old yet.
Same.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's been doing it a long time, a lot of great success. I mean, they're going to, and I guess this is kind of segue into what I was, referring to is, coming up here the rest of the summer, I'm going to have a series of stories coming up on the latest round of realignment for football.
Oh, okay.
And we started out with the Big Rivers, which obviously, as we've talked about, is kind of a point of contention with some people. And I thought that'd be a good one to talk with. So I talked with Coach Rako from Chippewa, Coach Sins from Menominee, Coach Dan Hill from Rice Lake. Now that Rice Lake's back in the Big Rivers, kind of about the changes in the Big Rivers, which for those of you that don't know, i.e. the biggest thing is that Eau Claire North and Memorial are not in the Big Rivers for football only. These are all, this is all football only stuff. But so this year they're in the Wisconsin Valley, so they're with Marshfield and Stevens Point and such, and kind of getting their perspective on that. And, I mean, to kind of tease it up, I mean, so far people aren't very happy about it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But, getting a chance to talk with them about it, kind of what it means. And, just, I've got some other coaches I've talked to as well that'll be coming up again. That'll be
really, I'm looking forward to checking that out. Definitely.
Yeah, those are always good coaches to talk to, and they, they had some things to say. So
especially, and I know Coach Sins listens too, but I mean, he did coach at Memorial to get that perspective a little bit there too.
He has, these coaches all come in this with a unique perspective. They're all longer time coaches in the Big Rivers. In the case of Coach Rako, I mean, he's seen kind of a couple different versions of it.
Right.
With Dan Hill, I mean, he was a part of a team that was, pushed out of the Big Rivers. Now it's back.
Right.
And in case of Coach Sins, like you mentioned, he coached at one of those Eau Claire schools, so he kind of understands, as the other ones do as well, because they're longer term coaches, like the importance of having, the Eau Claire schools and something that
those rivalries a little bit, right?
And something Coach Sins mentioned to me, he goes, it's just kind of crazy to think that, an Eau Claire Memorial or an Eau Claire North is going to play a conference game against DC Everest or Wausau West. They're driving right by Chippewa.
Right.
It's 10 minutes down the road, and that's not a conference game. That's just odd.
Right.
But that's just how kind of the deck was shuffled for this latest round of realignment. And, it could change in 2 years, every 2 years. And it kind of gets reevaluated. And that was kind of another thing where it's like, well, we're going to kind of get to a point here where like a lot of, fans and maybe more casual fans just aren't aware of who's even in their conference.
Right.
Because you would expect, because in every other sport, Eau Claire North and Eau Claire Memorial play Chippewa, they play Menominee, they play Rice Lake.
Right.
But in football, that may not necessarily be the case.
It's going to be confusing. No doubt
it is. It is. And that's why I wanted to touch base on it, because I wanted to kind of explain it and at least let people know, hey, this is how it is before the season starts.
And, maybe this might be a better question for somebody like Justice, but at the same time too. So like when we do football previews and we're so familiar with these other teams, people who cover, Eau Claire North Memorial, they may not know, like Justice may not know too much about DC Everest,
right, or
those teams,
or Stevens Point or Marshfield. Yeah, you're right, because so much of it is just by proxy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of even with me where it's like, look, I don't cover a Rice Lake or a Menominee. I don't, because I'm Chippewa, but at the same time, like I know about them because you kind of have to by proxy.
Right.
Or in the Clover Belt, it's like, Regis or Durand.
Right.
It's like, I don't cover them specifically, but it's like, because I cover Stanley Boyd
Mm-hmm.
and because I keep a close eye on the Clover Belt, I know some about what these, how the success these programs have had.
Right. Exactly. You're right. It's that proximity. So it's going to be, I think, a challenge, from media people too, to cover that.
Right. Because if if you cover North of Memorial, you want to make sure you're doing a good job letting people know about, hey, this is what you expect out of them, but this is also what you're kind of looking at with the rest of the conference.
Right.
You want to give some context, and that can be a little bit tougher when
mm-hmm.
it's a new batch of teams. And that was, that's something that, I've, with who I cover, I've kind of had that same challenge as well,
mm-hmm.
where, for example, if you look at like the new 8-man conferences, New Auburn is back with some familiar teams, kind of in that it's not called the Lakeland, but they're Lakeland
mm-hmm.
area teams. But yet I don't necessarily know a ton about them, but I'm going to try to learn because I want to be able to, if New Auburn was doing well, you want to give the context. Well, this team is doing well, but the other teams that are doing well as well are, X, Y, and Z.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's something I just thought of too. It's like, and that's going to be a little bit of an adjustment, I think, for a lot. So,
sure.
Hey, do we have is it the baseball all-star?
Yeah,
Classic?
the Wisconsin Baseball Coach Association. We've had some within the last couple of weeks. We've had all the all-star games
mm-hmm.
that you have in the spring, like softball. It was a few weeks ago. Basketball was actually the last 2 days.
Okay.
We had a bunch of representatives for both boys and girls down there. And yeah, today and tomorrow down in Oshkosh, or over in Oshkosh, I guess, however you look at it. Wisconsin Baseball Coach Association All-Star Classic. I wrote a piece a little bit earlier this week on Chippewa Falls' Easton Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Who will be pitching in the All-Star game. He's going to pitch at St. Thomas in college, and kind of talking about his story because it's a unique one. He's he comes from a baseball family. His dad, Jason, longtime coach at Chippewa, but before that was actually drafted by the LA Dodgers in the early 90s, played for a year or two in that organization. And he was a pitcher. Easton's a pitcher, but Easton is someone that pitched a little bit as a freshman, and even as a freshman, was the hardest thrower on the team, but it's kind of been the development of the other stuff that goes into pitching. It's not just, as we all know, it's not just throwing hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the mentality of it. And he's developed his repertoire to the point where he's now a 4-pitch pitcher. The last few years, he's added a curveball, he's added a slider, and you can see why, St. Thomas, a Division I school, is interested in him because, right now he's touching 90, 91,
mm-hmm.
and he's he's excited to go there and get with a college weight training program. They feel like there's a lot more in the tank there,
right?
And that's a program that has connections. You've got connections with both Menominee and Boyceville playing there. Walker Rez from Boyceville playing there. Briggs Richards, who's playing for the Express this summer, he plays there.
Yep.
And you've got assistant coaches on the team with one of the Vobber brothers, and also Joe Vobber's doing some kind of helping out work there.
Okay.
Obviously, longtime Twins and
Right.
Tigers coach.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just and earlier this summer. Soon to be senior Warren Bovey made his commitment next year to go to St. Thomas as well. So, that's a school that keeps a close eye on this area. And when you have, you don't have you have Milwaukee, but you just don't have a ton of maybe baseball eyes on this area. But there's, as we all know, there's a ton of good baseball talent.
Right. Yep.
So, and St. Thomas has been able to kind of, develop this as kind of a pipeline area for them a little bit. And they found some really good players there.
Yeah. Speaking of baseball, quick note, last night, the Express, as you mentioned, they had a walk-off win against Wausau last night in extra innings. Gabe Richardson, 2-run shot. The bomb in the 10th inning took down the Wausau Woodchucks. So he was also named Northwoods League Player of the Night, it looks like, too. So I know CRBL action's going on.
Yep, they've got their All-Star game next weekend. Not this Sunday, but next Sunday, the 7th, I believe.
The Sunday after the 4th.
There we go. And that'll be in Jim Falls. So
right.
Obviously
home of the Sturgeons.
Home of the Sturgeons, home of Sturgeon Fest.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of Sturgeon stuff up in Jim Falls.
All right, Brandon, thank you for the local sports roundup right there. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to get to some Brewers chats as well. Quick, though, I'm going to throw this out to the fine folks out there. Brandon and I are doing a podcast episode after this. It's going to be a little bit of a unique one. So we both have an affinity for baseball movies. I think a lot of people have an affinity for baseball movies out there. But what Brandon and I are doing, we're drafting 3 position players, 2 pitchers, and a manager of players from baseball movies that are not based on a true
fictional
story.
movies.
Yeah.
Fictional.
So 8 men out, we can't pick Shoeless Jackson.
We're not picking. We're now picking Babe Ruth.
We're not picking Babe Ruth. Sorry, John Goodman. We're those are not. So we're talking like the movies like Little Big League, Rookie of the Year,
Major League.
Sandlot, Major League.
Bull Durham.
Who should we pick? Bull Durham. Kind of forgot about that one. So who should we pick if you've got? Again, we're doing 3 position players, 2 pitchers, can be a starter or relief.
Yeah, we're not picky.
And then a manager. So if you have any nominations, you can send them to us. We've kind of got ours, but maybe there's a guy we kind of forgot.
And I think I mentioned this off air, but I want to share my big board.
Yeah.
Once we're done,
Mm-hmm.
because I've got some that I'm not going to pick them, but I just want them to be on my big board.
Yeah. All right, that's interesting. So,
including one I can guarantee you would have never picked.
Really?
I can, yes.
Guarantee it?
I can guarantee you won't pick this person.
Interesting. No, that's a tease. That is a good tease there. All right. So have a little fun with us. Give us some nominations who we should pick. Text it to us, 715-830-1912. Take a quick break, and we'll be back. We'll talk some more Brewers as they get set to begin the second half of their season, welcoming the last place Chicago Cubs. I love saying that. Back to AmFam Field. We'll be back. Who doesn't love summer in Wisconsin? Is it your dream to have a place to go and just sit by the lake on a summer eve with a campfire going? Hey, don't make it a dream anymore. You can live it, and you can do that with the help from Woods and Water Realty. Woods and Water Realty is your go-to real estate store to find that new home or your new getaway destination. Just visit woodsandwater.com to find your very own dream destination. Stop imagining that perfect Wisconsin summer eve. Live it. Visit woodsandwater.com today. Brandon, we got about 11 minutes to the top here. So we've got, we'll announce another bracket matchup coming up here in the next hour here. But we got that Brewer one going on right now, the 5th Brewer matchup for this challenge here. And Mark Loretta versus Corey Hart. And I always get interested to compare how Twitter votes go to Facebook votes. And Twitter, it's a little bit closer. Actually, it's a lot more closer. But regardless, Corey Hart is leading. Corey Hart, 57.4% of the vote over Mark Loretta, who has 42.6%. Now, Mark Loretta was one of your first picks when we did this, right? He was the first name you mentioned. Make the case for Mark Loretta right now.
Well, Jeff Cirillo was the first name.
Oh, yeah, Jeff Cirillo was. Then Mark
Loretta's up there.
Yep,
He was up there.
You're right. Jeff Cirillo was. So, but
I mean, a versatile infielder, played around, and I played around the diamond. And actually, I think people may not remember, but even after he left Milwaukee, he still had a solid career. Played for the Red Sox, played for the Dodgers. Bounced around a little bit, but still was always just a good, solid player. Good contact hitter, good defender. Like played second, played short, played third. Like carved himself a really nice career. And yeah, just someone that I, gravitated towards as a kid. Was number 8 before Ryan Braun.
That's true. Yep, true. So
for what that's worth.
Yeah. Corey Hart, do you think the name recognition and recency a little bit is
good, but he was also someone that I think we even talked about at the time, kind of maybe flew a bit under the radar because it was more of the the Fielder Braun team with, I mean, there were so many, I think, people of our age, so many people they would recognize when you add in Ricky Weeks, Ben Sheets, a little later on Giovanni Gallardo. Like, there's just of that era, there was just so many, I think, recognizable players that helped that team kind of pull itself out of the doldrums that were the latter 90s and early 2000s.
Right. So,
but he's one of them he's a multi-time All-Star, I believe.
Corey Hart, yeah, he's a couple times,
2 or 3,
yeah. So, and then Loretta, he did win a Silver Slugger, but that was with the Padres, I believe.
Correct.
So, but these are the Brewers that have moved on so far. B.J. Surhoff defeated Jeremy Burnett. Jim Gantner defeated Teddy Higuera. Lyle Overbay defeated Mike Caldwell, and Ben Sheets defeated Jeff Jenkins. So, if Corey Hart continues to his path right now, he will join those 4 and move on. The other regions so far, this one actually turned out, I was telling you a little bit off the air, was actually a little bit closer than I guess I thought it was going to be because of, again, name recognition and recency. But Joe Pavelski did defeat Trayvon Hughes, but it was close. It actually turned out closer than I thought it was going to be. Scott Tolzien defeated Mike Wilkinson. Kirk Penny defeated Pete Monty, and Al Toon defeated Darrell Bevel in that really close matchup. For the Bucks/Open one, Andy Thorpe native.
Born in Thorpe.
Dominated Tim Thomas. Steve Stricker dominated Larry Sanders. So a couple
golfers over Bucks.
Yeah. Brandon Jennings defeated Mo Williams, 2 Bucks going at it there. And then Terry Porter defeated Terry Cummings in the Battle of the Terrys. Packers so far has been Paul Kaufman defeated Ezra Johnson. Amon Green defeated Frank Winters. Tremont Williams defeated George Kuntz. And Lynn Dickey defeated John Brockington. So that's how everything's gone so far.
We're moving.
Even though I will be out next week, I will still post votes so we can get through this first round and get to some really tight matchups in the round of 32 as we head to the Sweet 16. So, okay. So, Brandon, yesterday we kind of talked a little bit about it. And I can't remember the last time this happened, but we asked, okay, first semester's in, halfway through the year, second quarter's in, grade the Brewers. I think everybody said A or an A minus. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially, you're always grading on a curve, and I think part of it's expectations, and different people had different expectations for the team. But as you're here today, and they're what, 6.5?
6.5 above the Cardinals, yeah.
Right. They're, kind of not too far off the Dodgers for the second best record in the National League. Like, it's tough for me to not give any other grade than being in that A range. I mean, if you want to split some hairs and say like A minus, okay, that's fine. But yeah, to me, it's tough to not be in that spot, and especially coming off of what they're coming off of with a sweep over the Rangers.
Right. Is Pat Murphy one of the best stories in baseball right now? Because I'm sure you read the Yahoo Sports article from earlier in the week with, some of the comments, even from Craig Counsell and quotes and all that. I mean, it was a good piece. It was, and I love. It just seems like the dude really loves his players and cares so much about his players right now. But when you look at Major League Baseball, I put Stephen Vogt in the Cleveland Guardians up there. But the Pat Murphy, I thought it was interesting too, where he kind of said, he really didn't push down the door for this job, and it kind of insinuated like maybe he wasn't really trying to go after it.
Right. And even we heard, I think earlier on from Mark Ananasi, where he said like they gave him the interview, but it was almost kind of like a cursory. Like, oh yeah, we'll give him one.
Yep. Just, he's bench coach and, that, whatever. And it's like, maybe it worked out for both sides, because he talked about in that article too, like how he's growing to really, really love this job now. And I think, I don't know, I was one, and I know I wasn't the only one. I thought, okay, this is just going to be a couple years saying,
right. Basically, it's kind of a placeholder. Yeah, he's a placeholder for Ricky Weeks.
And right now, I'm like, no, I don't want Pat Murphy to be. I want him to stick around for a little bit now.
It'd be kind of funny if this continues, where it got to the end of the year, and you would think right now that in the National League, he's probably he might be a favorite for the Manager of the Year, because the two best teams are two teams that have been there every year,
right,
with the Phillies and the Dodgers.
Yep.
So
he'd get it before Craig Counsell.
I mean, given like pretty much every year, we're like, oh, is this Counsell's year? Is this Counsell's year to win it? And then it would be kind of funny if Pat Murphy came in and then got it.
Right. That's kind of
because you have to look at the surrounding circumstances as much as who it might be for the Brewers, because I mean, Craig Counsell was deserving these other years, but normally that's an award that goes to kind of like not necessarily the manager with the best record, unless they have a slam dunk best record.
Yeah. Like just a dominating
Like they
year.
just dominate. Yeah. Normally it goes to like a team that maybe surprised the most. Like last year, wasn't it Skip Schumacher?
Yeah, I think
for the Marlins.
Yep.
Because they no one expected the Marlins to make the playoffs.
Yep.
That could be this year, but obviously there's still exactly 81 regular season games left to go.
I feel like Stephen Vogt's the clear leader in the American League right now.
Right.
Because of that situation there too, which that would be kind of interesting if it was Stephen Vogt and Pat Murphy, because early in the process, you were a guy that mentioned Stephen Vogt as a possibility for manager for the Brewers when we were talking about that. And look what he's doing right now in Cleveland. And the thing is too, he replaced Terry Francona.
That's not easy. I mean, that's Terry Francona is one of the best managers we've seen these last few decades.
Yeah. What has impressed you the most about what Pat Murphy has done in the first half, or his first 81 games? Is there something that has really kind of stood out to you, or?
I think it seems to be just the way he connects with the players. Like, and because I do think the players liked and respected Craig Counsell. I'm not gonna say they didn't, but it just seems like it's a little bit more like they maybe Pat Murphy wouldn't be the best fit with every team, but he's a great fit for this team. And it's a young group that, especially now being younger than it's been the last several years, maybe this is the type of manager they needed versus Craig Counsell, who's more of a, is more of a laid back kind of guy, even keel.
Yep.
And that's not a bad thing, but maybe that, that's not always going to connect. That may work better for like a more veteran team where they know like, hey, they don't need the, we don't need the rah-rah.
Right.
And Pat Murphy isn't necessarily rah-rah, but he's excitable. You can tell.
Yep.
And that's just something where it seems like, the younger guys have just kind of immediately gravitated towards that. Even someone like Christian Yelich, who's, he's a pretty laid back guy too, is kind of, you can tell he's just like, they're connecting.
Yep.
And that's the best thing you can do, is they're connecting. And then having the early success helps. I mean, if they were, 3 games under 500, maybe it wouldn't feel the same way, but it's just a good connect, it's a good mix. It's a good connection. Sometimes it just works. Sometimes it just clicks. And that just seems like, what you can say right now is the recipe works.
Doesn't it almost go outside the norm too, where I feel like maybe this is more of a football thing, but we've seen, and I think in other sports, where it seems like the narrative is, if you want to connect with the players, it almost seems like we're seeing this trend of like younger coaches.
Right. You're trying to maybe find someone that, like a Stephen Vogt, who's fresh out of being a player, and even that was kind of the case a little bit with Craig Counsell, where once he
Right.
took over the job, he wasn't that far removed from being a player. So you feel like, oh, he's not long ago he was a former player. He can connect. He can he can really get on the
Not
same
that
page.
far removed.
Right, he
Knows
can get on the
the
same page
current
with these
game.
players
Yep.
because he understands. And obviously Pat Murphy, longtime coach,
Right.
but it almost feels like too in some ways like he's kind of that you kind of see that he was a longtime college coach because he's a fiery guy. Like there are some managers that are that way, but a lot of them kind of aren't.
Yeah.
And and to me, the example of like the ultimate just kind of laid back coach where it didn't work was Ken Maka.
Yeah.
Where he was only there for 2 years, and you don't hear very many Brewers from that 08, 09, 2010 timeframe that'll say a lot of good things about him. Where I mean, he was almost too laid back. And Craig Counsell, I think he was more he had the good mix of that. But you don't want to be one way or the other. You don't want to be too laid back to where you just never you're always the same. But you also don't want to be too fired up where everything fires you up.
Right.
It's kind of one of those if everything fires you up, then nothing fires you up because you're always that way. You want to find that mix, and if you kind of had a knob, you were trying to figure out which end was it? Pat Murphy would be closer to the fired up than the quiet one end, but not like all the way over.
Right. Yeah. Not like little big leagues manager where Billy had to fire him.
Right.
Fired up over there. So
Right.
But yeah, it's. I can't remember. There was a post, and I mentioned this a couple of times, but you'll appreciate this, I think. So the Brewers on their Facebook account retweeted that article or posted that article with a quote from Murphy. And once in a while, it's a dark time to go through the comments of fans. And it was all positive. And one person even said, I can't remember the last time I went on a sports team's post and seen all positive comments.
Right.
I don't know if anybody really has anything negative to say at this point.
Everybody's drinking the Pat Murphy juice Kool-Aid right now.
Yep.
Rightfully so.
Yep. All right, 2 in. We got one more to go. We'll be back after these news updates. Third hour kicking off on this Friday morning, a rainy start, depending on where you're listening to us from, that is. Coming up, we're going to get back to some more Brewers talk here. I did look up, by the way, Brandon, because Brandon and I are going to be doing a fun podcast episode coming up after this. So you want to make sure you are subscribing for free to the Man Cave podcast. But Brandon and I are drafting our all-time, it's not a full-on team because it could get a little in the weeds there.
Yeah.
But we're drafting 3 fictional baseball position players / hitters, and then 2 pitchers and a manager. So I've been looking at, thank you to IMDb, they had a list of all the fictional pitchers out there. So I got my list, but I wanted to see if I missed anybody. And there was one I missed that I might have to put in my big board right now. Kind of forgot about him, but I don't know if I got to go with the scouting reports though too. So that's the other thing. There's a couple of players that I'm interested to see if they get drafted based off of. I don't know. I don't want to. I think I know one of yours that you think I don't know. I think I do.
No chance.
I think I do.
Well, we'll save it for the pod.
I'll
give you the opportunity, and we'll see.
I'll see. So I'm not picking him, but I think I know who it is. I'm just saying. So, but check that out later this morning. We'll drop it after. Well, we're going to start to record it after we're done here. But you can make your nominations if you want. Text them on over to us, and
we'll take some help.
Yeah, we'll put it to a vote. Who has the best team out there? See what we got. So again, fictional. So, like for example, Little Big League, they play the Mariners, but Randy Johnson is not eligible for this.
No Ken Griffey Jr.
No Ken Griffey Jr. So not eligible. John Goodman playing Babe Ruth, not eligible. So why are you looking at me like that?
I didn't realize I was looking at you like anything.
This. You're like this, like, oh, I see what you're doing, sort of thing. Like, what's going on with you? Hey, before we get back to some Brewers talk, though, Brandon, Bucks draft in the books. First of all, stop with the 2 days because I'll be honest with you.
Right,
I did not know it was in the afternoon.
It was. Yeah, it was.
I just assumed it was going to be at night again.
No,
and then I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on?
I liked the NBA draft the way it was, just one night.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, 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 everything's done. That was.
It was ridiculous.
Who is clamoring for a second day where it's broadcast at 3 p.m?
Exactly. And that's what I was like, scrolling through social media. I'm like, wait a minute, what? They're like doing it now?
Right.
I'm like, holy crap. Okay. And even with Bronny James, which happened to, go out there. But Bucks, I mean, let me ask you this. So I think it's clear they drafted a couple guys that are going to be projects. Molding, developing, that sort of stuff. So on one hand, they don't get any players that help them this year, it seems like. Guys that are probably not going to be on the court. But on the other hand, if this draft is as bad as everybody says it was in terms of talent depth, was this actually maybe a smart move by the Bucks to not necessarily try to get somebody who could be on the court right away? So because, maybe reaching for a player. So instead they focused on guys that they can develop and be patient with. But on the same time, how does that help you this year?
I was going to say, I didn't think of it that way, but I just think it's a double-edged sword.
Right.
Because coming off last year, obviously the level of kind of tenseness is raised a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Where, people know, like, hey, the Bucks need more. Like the way the last few years have went in the playoffs, like Bucks need more. But you're right, where I think we expect them to come out of it with someone that could, even if they're just like a ninth or a 10th, man off the bench, like still someone maybe that could help.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some players that I think people recognize that were available at those spots.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that's what it is in the draft. It's like, well, I've heard of that person, so I want them on the team. And, you never know how it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a little disappointing. But I never thought about the perspective you brought. Where like, well, because this draft was looked at as not being very strong.
Right.
So if that's the case, especially once you get 22, 23 picks into it, like, is it worth picking the 22 or 22nd or 23rd, ranked player in a bad draft?
Right.
Versus, hey, we think this person has some tools. Let's try to, let's go for an upside play over, let's go for ceiling instead of floor. Like,
essentially asking who's going to be the better player in 3 years, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and because that's it. Is it going to be Kyle Filipowski or is it going to be AJ
Johnson? Right.
We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But if they would have kind of went one or the other, maybe then I could have sold a little bit more. But
kind of what the Lakers almost did, really.
Right. Yeah. The Lakers getting Knack from Tennessee at 17 was great. Like that was from where everyone was expecting him to go. Like that was a very good value play, it seems.
Right. And then you can go and get Bronny James, who's not going to play.
Right.
Essentially.
We'll say this. I mean, that brings some ammo for the Wisconsin Herd.
Yeah. Right. Wherever they're going to play.
Exactly.
Wherever they're going to play. So, I can't get into the NBA draft anymore, dude. And I used to. I think we talked about that.
Yeah, like
before.
I like the way it's set up. It's just tougher. It's tougher now.
Yeah, and it is kind of a knock, but it's not really. I'm not trying to pick. You don't know as many players,
right?
Whether it's G League or internet. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. It's just we don't know them as much. Like I remember as a kid, be like, we'd go in the second round. I'm like, hey, my Orlando Magic got Miles Simon in the second round. I knew who Miles Simon was. There's we don't know half these guys.
Even when the Bucks drafted Malcolm Brogdon, I've heard of Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah,
and he played Virginia.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just I don't know.
That's just the way it is. Like and there were players in the second round for Cam Christie from Minnesota. Like there were.
Yep.
But
or Kolek from
Tyler Kolek from Marquette.
Marquette. Yep.
There were, but it's just to me there weren't that many top end players I'd heard of.
Right. I mean, there was maybe a couple, and really, I mean, the ones that me personally, I knew more about was Big Ten, like Zach Edey and Shannon, and all
Shannon
that,
and other players.
But that's Big Ten basketball, which
exactly.
we watch
you
the most
follow,
of.
You follow. So
and obviously a couple of the UConn players because they won a freaking national championship for another year. So
right.
But it's and it's different from the obviously. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's again probably a double-edged sword. As soon as the finals is over with, I mean, you're talking about the draft here in a couple of weeks, where the NFL they've got this off-season pipe up.
Yeah, they have. I mean, the NFL Combine is such a TV event now versus the NBA Combine. It's like, oh yeah, it happened.
Yeah, pro days. We're following pro days, and
I mean, you've like we've talked about this. The NFL draft there's so much hype that goes into it, but you and me and so many others, we eat it up.
Yep, we love it. We will do mock drafts,
and we will eat it up and say, "Thank you, sir. Can we have some more?"
Exactly. Yeah, we're a gluttony of punishment for that one.
Right.
So
we are the gif of Homer Simpson in front of the donut machine, just eating donuts and donuts and donuts. But that's like anonymous reports about how Team X doesn't like player Y.
Right. Yep. So, and then the other part with this too is, I don't know. When I see Alex Caruso, this is how just different how I think teams value the drafts. Whereas the NFL really values first round picks. Whereas if you're an NBA team and you're trying to trade away your 2030 picks or Alex Caruso, the Bulls turned down the 14th overall pick for Alex Caruso to just trade him for what was it? The kid's name from Oklahoma City. There was that report.
Yeah.
Where they like, no, we don't want the 14th pick. We'd rather have this kid from Oklahoma. Can you imagine that's like Packers offering to trade Preston Smith and turning down the 14th overall pick,
right?
For somebody.
Yeah,
and it's just that gives you another like how teams I don't think value first round picks that much anymore,
especially this year.
Right, and even in some of the season, I mean, if you don't have like the first couple. It's like, okay, then what?
You have a crapshoot.
You got pick swaps. You've got, whoever has the best. I mean, it's so confusing on top of it.
You mentioned too, like trading picks in the future. The T-Wolves trading, 2020 or 2031, and you've got like unprotected. You've got like limited protection, and like there's just a lot that goes into it. I think sometimes people get confused and maybe they lose a little interest because it's just in some ways a lot more complicated.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to throw out a bold idea. Get rid of the NBA draft and just make it fancy.
Ooh.
Then you don't have to worry about teams tanking for a number 1 pick if that's what they're so worried about with draft lotteries.
That's true. But would those prospects ever go to a bad team?
Money?
But in the NBA, your amount you can sign for is capped.
Right.
You have the max, you have the super max, like
right. So if a good team's already super max, though,
then they can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose.
Or who said this? I might have been Paulie Paps, I think, said tweet it. Find out the draft order the day of.
That I kind of like.
Yeah. Do the pong balls
the day of. You just show up and like.
Yep.
Then you kind of have to do you really have to do your scouting.
Well, then
because
here's the thing. Bronny James a 2nd round pick can't say, I'm only going to go visit 2 teams. Lakers and Phoenix on your pro. Stuff like that. Like that just bugs me. It just irritates me. It's a great story. I think every dad would be like, oh, that would be awesome. But I mean, come on now. It's also like, come on.
Yeah.
Something's got to change to draw more interest in it, though, I think, for the NBA draft.
Yeah. And it's, some of it's out of their hands with college and stuff like that. But like, yeah, it's still, I think, my second favorite one, but that's because baseball and NHL is so different because you just don't know anybody. At least you know more in basketball than you do in baseball and hockey.
See, I was trying to think of that. Baseball, I think, is just...
like everyone knows baseball is my favorite sport, but like the MLB draft, like I'll watch like the first round.
Mm-hmm. The NHL one, I almost want to put at 2, but the only thing that is giving me a little bit of pause is like, well, you might not see the player right away. They control it.
Yeah, like last year when goalie from Steel, what's his name?
Oh yeah. Adam.
Yeah, Adam Guyon was drafted by the Blackhawks. Like he's drafted by the Blackhawks. He's controlled by the Blackhawks organization, but it's like then last year played for the Green Bay Gamblers, and he still can go play for the UMD, Minnesota Duluth.
Right.
And so it's like you still might be several years before you see him.
Right. Yeah, that's the one downfall of like the NHL one.
And that's that's just the biggest thing the NFL has is these people. You know who Caleb Williams was.
Right.
Like even in years where
and we've had college football to be able to pipe them up for years.
Yes.
Yes. Where it's not like you've got these youngsters.
And then the off season where even it was a year like what was the year that the Chiefs, it was a while ago, the Chiefs had the first pick and they drafted the tackle from Central Michigan. Jake. What was his name? I forget his name.
Fisher.
Jake Fisher.
Yep.
But like he still had by the time the draft came, he still had the draft hype train behind him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That doesn't necessarily happen as much in other sports.
Because the Jaguars also had a little tackle. He was like hurt all the time too.
Luke Jokel. Yeah, Luke Jokel from Texas A&M.
Yep.
Yeah, that was just the year where it was
Eric Fisher.
Eric Fisher. Sorry.
Eric Fisher,
yeah, I think I'm thinking of Jake Long.
I think you were Jake Long. Yeah.
I got my tackles mixed up. Sorry about that.
Right. In Michigan though too. Michigan's that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think college football is the perfect feeder for that because we're forced because they're not allowed to enter the NFL draft for 2 or 3 years. We knew about Trevor Lawrence, and people were saying he should have been drafted after his freshman year, but just kept building and building.
Caleb Williams kind of the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So we know these players,
right? And it's always football is always different just because it's scheduled, it's treated different. Where as we know, on the weekend. When, more often than not, Saturday is for college football and Sunday is for the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, the NFL would love every single day ever to be about the NFL, though.
Here's a what if. Michael Jordan's in the draft now. Or he's in college now. Does he stay 1 year?
I have to remember, how good he was as a freshman. Because, he was, but still, he got better.
Right. But
maybe
a lot of these freshmen probably would do the same thing if they stayed,
because you remember who you had in front of him.
Right.
That year
in the draft,
yeah,
Hakeem and Sambui,
right.
But Jordan stayed. He forgoed his last one. But would a guy like Jordan or some of these guys be like one and done? Would they go to a G League? Would they go overseas to play for a year? Sort of stuff. What would Jordan do? Like, what if he was in the 2024 draft, or would he only do 1 year in college? I don't know. Some of these all timers, right? Larry Bird, Magic Johnson.
Joe Alexander. He can dunk.
Oh man, it's a different time, so it's so hard to.
It is.
And the
It's
thing is like, I mean, I'm sure he's probably been asked about it.
I'm sure, but
Yeah.
how do you answer it?
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's so different. It's like comparing apples to fire trucks.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is.
You just can't do
You
it.
can't do it. All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll do cream of the crop and then get back to some Brewers talk. All right. So let's do that. We're back in just a couple minutes. All right, let's get to some Brewers talk here this morning as the Crew gets set to take on the Chicago Cubbies, another series where the Cubbies are, I guess, actually coming back east because they were out west.
They're out, yeah, they were
with the Giants there. So, right, yeah.
A lot of right now it's an interesting time because you have the Brewers who were out west, now they're home, and then they go back out west. You have the Twins who are out west,
yep,
and then you have the Cubs who are out west.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is also, I was looking at this the other day. Brewers and Cardinals don't play each other until August.
Right. And then
it's just 2 more series. It's
yeah.
just August and September.
And those are a couple weeks apart. And remember, it's a good I said at the time, but even now I feel better about saying it's a good thing the Brewers took was it 6 of the first 7?
Yeah.
So I think then they need to win 1 more to win the season series. Because remember, there's no more tiebreakers. So.
Yep. Exactly. So Brandon, see, I got to start to do a better job of keeping this, but Brandon's got his preseason predictions from when did we do it as a podcast? I think
we did.
Okay,
I think we did right before the season started.
And I know I didn't think the Brewers were going to make the playoffs. That looks like a joke right now. Although and I changed it though. Now I'm kind of regretting it because when we did our division winners, I actually had the Cardinals, and then I changed it. And I'm not saying the Cardinals are going to win. I'm just saying that maybe you'd have a better
shot.
Yeah, it looks a little bit better. I think the only thing that I know one of them was, does Willie Adames get traded? I don't think so anymore. Unless
that would cause some civil unrest.
Yeah. Which we'll get to. We had a texter earlier on. I'll get to this in a little bit later on, a trade scenario there. But and another one was bold prediction. I think mine was top 3 in steals, which I'm feeling pretty good about right now.
They're the number 1, I believe. So,
or did they go past the Reds?
I believe they did.
Wow.
At least they were earlier in the week.
Wow. So, okay. So I'm feeling good about that. But I was completely off in the playoffs. You had them going to the playoffs, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can very quickly what I had because I had it written down here. For the East, I had the Orioles winning. They are currently tied with the Yankees. I had the Guardians in the Central.
Yeah, look at you.
They're up. In the East, I had the Astros, but Seattle is currently up by 4.5 over the Astros. My 3 wild cards were the Rays, because I will always pick the Rays. They're struggling. They're a game under 500. I had the Rangers. They're struggling. They're 7 games under 500 after visiting the Brewers. And the Mariners, I mentioned, they win the West. So,
yeah.
I mean, right now, the thing that's not looking great for me is I didn't pick the Yankees to make the playoffs at all.
Yeah.
And they are currently 21 games above 500. So that one... might have to wear that one. In the NL East, I had the Braves winning. They are currently 2nd behind the Phillies. The Central, I had the Reds.
That's right.
And they are currently 4th, 5 games under. And in the West, I had the Dodgers, who are currently
right. Yeah.
And then my wild cards were the Phillies, who I mentioned winning, the D-backs, who are a few games under 500, and the Brewers.
By the way, Brewers are 2nd, 1 behind the Reds for stolen bases.
Oh, okay.
So they got 113, and the Reds have 114.
Jerks. It's because they played yesterday.
Well, they're same amount of games, 81 apiece.
That's not fair. But yeah, going to my Brewers specific predictions for the season, I had them going 86 and 76. So 10 games of 500, so they are currently 15. So they would have to play 5 games below to reach that. So I'm fine not being right about that.
Yeah.
I'll be way off. I don't care about that. My prediction for the top pitcher is Freddie Peralta. It depends. To me, that's one where it just depends on how you view it.
Yeah. See, to me, I'm a little down on him. Maybe I had higher expectations to be a 1, but has he been the best starter? Or has that been Colin Ray? Tobias Meyer's been awesome in June.
But he got the stuff. I still think I would maybe give a slight advantage to Peralta. He has thrown more innings.
And the thing is, who would you trust more? I'd probably still trust Freddie Peralta more.
It's. I mean, I would agree that maybe there was another gear I think people feel like Freddie can get to.
Right. Yep.
But top hitter, I pick Contreras. I mean, that's one where it's a good problem for the Brewers to have. You can make a case for a couple different guys. I still think I would lean Contreras.
Or Yelich.
Yeah, because Yelich would be right there too. But I don't feel like
Torang's probably the biggest surprise.
Yes,
right?
Breakout player. This is the one I'm actually the most proud of. My breakout player was Brian Hudson.
That's right. I forgot you had that.
I did.
Nice.
So I mean, this is another one that's good because there's a few guys you can make a case for. You can make a case for Joey Ortiz. You can make a case for Brian Hudson. You can make a case for Jared Koenig.
Bryce Terang.
Right. There's a lot of them you could make a case for and then say, no, that's good. That's a good pick. And obviously Brian Hudson too.
Trevor McGill, maybe.
Yeah, I mean he pitched well down the stretch last year, but I think he's really kind of stabilized that closer spot.
Right.
He's been good. My pick for disappointment was Garrett Mitchell, and that was in part because he can't stay healthy.
Yep.
And there was some hubbub a little bit early in the week because I think it was Wednesday he left a minor league game, but he was back in the lineup last night. So.
Yeah. Yep.
And he's getting to the end of his rehab assignment. I think that's at the end of the month because you can only be in a rehab assignment I think for 20 days. Yeah. Yep. So, they can do a couple things there. They could just they could just send him to AAA. I mean, you could, if you want to, bring him up, maybe send Tyler Black down. Jake Bauer, since Tyler Black, I call it Jake Bowers, is kind of, gotten back in gear a little bit. So they could do that and just have a bunch of outfielders and try to make that work.
Jackson Chourio is not getting sent down.
No, especially with the way he's been hitting lately. Like he's in June, he's been awesome. My bold prediction, I think I picked the wrong guy on this, but I said that Jacob Junis could be like a 2018 Yuli Chassin. Yeah. Kind of like that guy that guy that was kind of the quote unquote ace, but was like just kind of under the radar good. I mean, that's probably maybe more like what Colin Ray has done. Yeah. I mean, he probably would have been closer to that. Right. But I mean, Jacob Junis he's back now. I'm going to be interested to see with him because he's a multi-inning guy. He could be kind of getting stretched out to maybe he jumps into the rotation at some point here. If they give Dallas Keuchel another couple starts and it just doesn't work, maybe by then you have Jacob Junis stretched out to where he can go 5-6 innings. Because he started in April, didn't he? He did. And he pitched multi-innings against the Padres in that series. He also did it again in the finale against the Rangers. So I think that's kind of what they're looking at for him is you can, just because he's in the bullpen now doesn't mean he's going to stay there. Right. But he's a major league pitcher. You kind of work around it. So, you can almost kind of piggyback him with somebody else. Maybe it is Keuchel, but whoever. My pick for the home run leader is Willie Adames. I think he is right now. So my stolen base leader, I don't think I'm going to get, which was Sal Frelick. Turang is, and Frelick hasn't been bad in that respect, but I mean, it right now it's just Turang. Right. My pick for All-Stars, I had two. I had Freddie Peralta and William Contreras. Contreras, I feel pretty solid about that. Freddie, I don't think it's numbers game. He's not going to. If there's a pitcher, it's Hudson, right? I think he's deserving. It's always tough to get middle relievers into the All-Star game. It's tough when it's got to be a closer or starter, right? Yes, and that's I'm not saying that's fair, but that's the criteria. You need to have a really high bar to clear, and he is. But honestly, with some other Brewers that could make it, like I could just see him kind of being on the outside looking in, and that would be unfortunate because he's pitched well enough to be an All-Star, right? But I don't think it's going to happen. A couple of the prop bets we had. Who is second most on innings pitched? I think we both said Colin Ray, and that's who it is. So, Frelick over or under 99.5 games at third base. Oh, that's way under now. Yeah, exactly. I think we both said under. In part because I figured with the Mitchell injury, because I remember at the time that was right when it happened. It was like, well, he's going to be in the outfield. Chourio over under 250. I think we both said under. He is right now, but and I know for Chourio, I had him as my biggest disappointment, but I had it from the outside's perspective. Yeah, like of what people were, people may think oh, this guy's going to be awesome right away. It's like, well, no, it's a process. And I think honestly, his year so far has gone about how you could expect. And that's what I was going to ask is how would you kind of assess? He got off to a quick start the first week or two. Then I think the majors kind of got a bit of a book on him. Okay, how do you pitch him? And that's always it's always about how do you play and how do you react when they make adjustments? Now, June he's hitting 302. Yeah, you look back his last 30 days, which is pretty much all June. He's hitting 284, a 330 on base, OPS just shy of 800. That works. That's good. So I think it's going to be a process for him, and I think he's someone that by the end of the year, his numbers may look okay, but it's going to be better if you break it down by the second half. Well, and part of it too, this is going to go to back to Pat Murphy, because remember, was it a month and a half ago where he wasn't playing, and there was some questions, and I remember Pat Murphy, I'm paraphrasing, he says he's got to learn to prepare like a pro, and he talked about he was spending time with Contreras and Adames and pregame batting and all that, and I think we got to remember, guy had a handful of games in AAA and nothing in the major league, so it's
is he now is it starting to kind of click to play as a pro?
Right. This is what you need to do as in the majors.
Right.
Like, this is how you need to approach it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's kind of now starting to kind of
I think so.
resonate a little. And that I think goes back to Pat Murphy again.
Yeah.
A little bit, which makes his job what he's done so
Well,
far,
and
winning with.
Yes, and it could have been easier to just say, you know what, we're going to get you every day at bats in AAA. But like, even though he wasn't playing for a stretch, like he was still working.
Mm-hmm.
Like they almost gave him a chance to have a bit of a reset.
Right.
Which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
And that comes with the depth they've had. Like they have, I think at this point, any combination of outfielders the Brewers threw out there, fans are probably like, okay, like, it's, and it's one of those things, like when a bunch of people are hitting, like your lineup order doesn't really matter.
Right.
Like, but when nobody's hitting, like no combination of players you put out there is going to suddenly unlock 6 runs a game.
Mm-hmm. Is one of the better surprises though too Blake Perkins?
Yeah. I think Blake Perkins was looked at as being like kind of the ideal. To me, he was like an ideal backup outfielder because he's so good defensively. Like he can switch hit.
Because I asked this question earlier this week. If it's between these 3, knowing Chirio and Yelich are locked, and you got to keep 2, Mitchell, Frelick, and Perkins, majority went with Frelick and Perkins.
I think so, because as of right now, they've done it in the majors.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Garrett Mitchell
would Garrett's is his high end, like maybe he provides a little bit more offense?
Yeah, I mean, there's more power there, I
Mhm.
would say. I mean, I think, he could be a 15, 20 home run hitter, and I'm not
Mhm.
sure about those, especially Frelick. I'm not sure about those other 2.
Right.
But, your best ability is your availability.
Mm-hmm.
And, what they could do is they could send down Tyler Black and call up Garrett Mitchell, and you just have a bunch of outfielders, and maybe then you're making a little bit more usage out of that DH spot
Mm-hmm.
for Yelich, even though I know he prefers to play the outfield. But still, like if you're trying to get 4 of those guys out there, maybe you're playing a tough righty or a righty that struggles against lefties, and you want to get as many, you want to load as many lefties as you can in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you give Mitchell a shot to see. But, all those guys, between Frelick, Perkins, and Mitchell, they can all be sent down.
Mm-hmm.
But
Perkins, I thought he was.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think he was out of options.
Okay, I wasn't sure if he had.
But like at this point, like Perkins, I think Perkins is the best defender out of the group.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy like I don't think he's getting sent down. And Frelick got off to a bit of a slow start, but he's picked it up. Like he's not going to be a big power hitter, but like you look at his average and his on base, and like there's like he should be there. But right now, I think the odd guy out is Garrett Mitchell, just because of everyone else playing so well.
And Joey Weimer.
and yeah, poor Joey Weimer. Like it just, he's had a rough go of it, especially when they tried, with kind of the goofy swing he had that was working before, and then it just, he got to a certain level and it wasn't, and like they tried to overhaul, and it just, he might be a guy that honestly just needs a refresh somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Joey Weimer. Like I think that everything's there for him to be a good major leaguer. But sometimes people just need a fresh start somewhere else.
Yeah.
You need a different coaching staff to kind of look at. It's a bit like when you go to an art gallery and you look at a painting. It's like, what do you see here? Maybe you have a different coaching staff that can look and say, hey, you know what, we're going to do this instead of this.
Mm-hmm.
And that come trade deadline, to me, it would not be a surprise if he was someone that was on the move.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. Anything else for your predictions? Did we cover them all?
No, that was. I think the last one was the Adames trade.
Oh yeah.
And you said yes, I said no, and that was obviously going in with what we.
There's still people talking about could they? I would be shocked.
And I would too, and
I get the Dodger thing.
Yeah,
but at this point,
like you'd have to have somebody offer you like the world,
because
like I get people saying like, well, if you trade him, you could just move Joey Ortiz short. You could, but then what do you do at third?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you going to move Sal Frelick there? Are you going to, Tyler Black really isn't going to play there. I mean, he's been more of first base now. So it's just like, you don't really have somebody to play there. And like, at this point, I'm fine with them. Just like you play him, you play him there, you offer him in the off season. If you go somewhere else, you get the comp draft pick. Like, that's fine. Like, unless someone comes up to you and is going to give you like a top 100 prospect, which they're not going to because you only have them for a couple months.
Right.
Like I just, as a college professor of mine would love to say, is the juice worth the squeeze? In this case, I don't think it is. Is it worth what you're getting for what you're putting in? No. Like I just knowing, and Willie Adames has had a good year.
So let me if it's Dodgers, what about if it's Gavin Lux?
No.
No.
Lux is strong. No, there are people.
I know he'd be a fan favorite instantly because of Wisconsin.
Because of Wisconsin,
Yep.
but no, it would have to be someone much more productive as a part of their, because the Dodgers do have a lot of good younger players, but you'd have to go more than that,
right?
A lot more.
Not to completely switch gears. This is a couple days old, but I just saw this. I don't know how true it is. But apparently there's some talk out there that Bucks and Warriors have discussed Bobby Portis for Andrew Wiggins.
I thought I'd seen someone shoot that down.
Did they shoot that down?
I thought because I thought it was Wednesday night or Thursday, because I'd seen the same thing, but I thought someone I had kind of trusted when it came to Bucks stuff kind of say like, eh.
Okay. That's an interesting one if that were the
It
case.
is. I'm trying to, because I think the biggest thing they said is like it really can't work salary.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, that was probably. I think that was the
Okay.
reason they said like no, because like it's just
right.
money wise it doesn't match up. Like, is that in that case like are you gonna have to deal like a Middleton or somebody?
Yeah.
Because Wiggins is making a good chunk of money, and Portis wasn't bad.
No.
So like, and obviously we know the Bucks are pretty close to. I mean, unless they're really busting up another salary floor or something, which I don't know if they can.
Right.
Like.
Yeah, that didn't seem right. Okay. Just wanted to, it just popped up on my Twitter feed for some reason. So, okay, we got to do some picks and predicts.
By the way,
Cream
it's
of
wrong.
Crop.
According to Pat Murphy, it's called Twizzler.
Twizzler. Yeah, I love when
I
guys
prefer
say that.
Twizzler.
I think we need to change that now. Can we just refer to it as Twizzler, or am I going to get yelled at when I refused to call Aaron Rodgers A-Rod? So I would always say A-Raj, and I got yelled at for that.
I mean, to me, A-Rod is Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't want to do it. But whatever. Apparently, it offended some people. So, anyways, let's take a quick break, and we'll do some cream of the crop and picks and predicts. Brought to you by the Elbow Room. Coming up after these quick words. Make sure you're going to check out the next episode of the Man Cave podcast. That'll be uploaded probably about an hour after we shut off the mics here this morning. Just a quick reminder, too. Out all next week, so we'll have different programs on in the morning. So we'll be back regularly scheduled programming on July 8th. So, when else should we? Okay, never mind. I thought when. Oh yeah, just some more NBA stuff out there. Nothing for the Bucks. Emmanuel quickly is signing a new deal.
Very rich man.
Yeah, stay with Toronto. So, before we get to picks and predicts, let's do some cream of the crops. Ready? All right, Brandon, I'll give you the honors.
I am going to go to someone you mentioned a little bit earlier. We both talked about him a little bit, but I'm going to go Stephen Vogt.
Oh,
for the Cleveland Guardians, who opened today with a 7-game lead in the AL Central, 51-28, 23 games up, or 23 games above 500. Like, for a team that I can't imagine. Like, I figured they'd win the division, but I didn't think that division would be very good.
Right.
So, I mean, that is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned, be able to kind of follow in those footsteps of Terry Francona, who's a fantastic manager, like, not easy. So,
yep,
all the props in the world to him right now for what he's doing in Cleveland.
I'm going to go not as creative as yours, but Scotty Scheffler. I mean, the dude just keeps on winning. He doesn't have the flamboyant personality or anything like that, but I mean, does that really matter at this point? The guy's just cashing checks, winning trophies, having babies, getting arrests thrown out and all that stuff. So, I mean, you got Scotty Scheffler, dude.
He's doing it right now.
He's easily the cream of the crop in the golf world. No doubt about it. So, all right, let's do some picks and predicts coming up here. Brewers Cubbies series. I got to give you creds first. I gave you a hard time last Friday. But you said the Brewers were going to lose the series to the Padres, and I
poo-pooed me.
Although I will say you poo-pooed, I think, your reaction
I
after the
did not.
Brewers
It was not.
won
It
the
had less to do
series.
about the Brewers and more about the Rangers.
This was Brandon's tweet after the Brewers swept the Rangers. Paraphrasing, but you said, if I'm a Rangers fan, I'm feeling pretty good because the Brewers swept them last year. You kind of dumbed down the Brewers sweep, dude.
I was trying to more put some air in the tires of the Rangers.
Why?
Why not?
You're a Brewers guy. Have an exciting tweet about the Brewers sweeping, coming back from dropping 3 out of 4 against the Padres and sweeping the Rangers, especially in an extra inning walk-off, Andrew Monasterio. The first thing that comes out of your mouth to your keyboard is, if I'm a Rangers fan, I'm still feeling good.
Yes, if I'm a Rangers fan, I'm still feeling pretty good.
I think you poo-pooed on it a little bit.
I think you're a poo-poo.
Well, agree to disagree.
The poo-poo.
Agree to disagree. How's your golf handicap, by the way? I'm just never mind. Maybe only some get that reference. So
I'll carry my own clubs.
Yeah. All right, let's do
let's talk about something else.
Let's do Brewers Cubs. Who do you got? How many?
Look, I'm going to take Brewers 2 or 3, but man, it's such a golden opportunity. Like, a lot's changed in the months since these two teams played. When they played, as we know, right off Memorial Day, and tensions were running high and all that good stuff, and the Brewers took 3 or 4.
Right.
Because man, I mean, I think they'll take 2 or 3. The pitching matchups are pretty good. Like, just as far as like being good matchups, but like, you have such a chance here to like step on the throat a little bit. Like, if you can find a way to get a sweep here,
I love the sound
I don't
effects.
think it'll happen, but man, if it did, like, that would be just such a how about that kind of a look to the to the Cubs right now. But I'll say the Brewers take 2 or 3.
Pitching set up for the Brewers in this series.
They've
right?
got they've got what you would believe to be their 3 best pitchers going.
Yep. I'll go 2 out of 3.
And yeah, the Cubs got Justin Steele, and Justin Steele has a fantastic track record against the Brewers.
Mm-hmm.
But with Javier Assad going on the injured list, obviously that's a spot they're going to fill. The Cubs threw Imanaga yesterday,
Yep.
So he's not pitching in this series.
Although
so.
Brewers lit him up last time.
They did. But yeah, I think it sets up well for 2 or 3. Would like to see a little more, but I won't get too greedy.
I'm okay about getting greedy.
Get greedy. They're gonna find a way to win 4.
All right, let's go then with the Yankees visiting Toronto.
I'm gonna go Yankees to take a couple.
I'll go Yankees with this one too. How about let's go? Well, okay, Guardians at Kansas City.
Sneaky good one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go Kansas City 2 or 3 though.
Okay, I'll go Guardians 2 out of 3. I got your cream of the crops picks back.
There you go.
Let's go then Cincinnati at St. Louis.
Cincinnati won yesterday. I'm gonna say Cincinnati takes 2 more. I'm gonna say Cincinnati does a little bit of a solid for the Brewers.
All right, I'll go with you too. I was gonna go Cincinnati wins this series. How about Twins Seattle?
Seattle 2 out of 3.
I'm gonna go Seattle 2 out of 3 too. Do you want to do Dodgers Giants?
Sure.
Dodgers.
Okay. I mean, we could, but we know exactly what we're gonna pick. So.
Right. Yep. So, all right, that's pretty much the games there, unless you want to do like Pirates and Braves, but
I'm good.
All right. So, all right, those are your picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room. Don't forget, if you're looking, I hate it when you do that all the time. Don't forget, if you're looking for somewhere to check out any of the games or get out of the weather, whether it's raining or maybe it's maybe a little too hot or something like that, and you want to cool down with a cool, crisp man cave light, head on over to the Elbow Room, located right next to the Banbury Place, and chat a little sports with Garrett and the company over there. All right, we got a few minutes left here. Last call, if anybody's got any nomination suggestions on who we should pick in our draft coming up here. Best, we're selecting 3 fictional baseball position/hitters and 2 pitchers and then a manager. All fiction. Fiction.
That means fake.
So text them on over if you got any I'm pretty good with mine, I think, right now.
I like my list.
Now, we can't have the same. That's the thing.
No, that's why it's a draft.
It's a draft. So, obviously, you and I could have some of the same ones out there, which would throw a little bit of a wrench.
Sure, I'm sure we have some players. There's players out there we would both want on our team. That's the fun part of the draft.
Which one was harder for you? Is it position or pitchers?
I think my position player group is a little bit larger.
Yeah.
But that's also, there's one extra spot.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you. I have 2 managers on my list. I'm getting one or the other.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah. Not to say there's not other potential options.
So here's the thing. So it's on the record. Whoever gets, we'll see who wins rock, paper, scissors.
You cannot draft someone for more than one thing.
Right. But we can pick manager first overall if we want.
You want?
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you want.
So,
it's all.
So essentially, we're drafting 6 slots.
Yeah, we have 6 rounds. Okay. And you need to end up with 3 position players, 2 pitchers, and a manager. The order you do it does not matter. Okay. It's all lump sum. If you want to go manager first overall, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So just wanted to get that.
Non-snake style, we will do rock, paper, scissors. So rock, paper, scissors means something.
Best out of 3 again?
Yep. And at some point, I guess I'll beat you, but maybe not for a while.
Hey, if there was one for you to beat me, it might be this one.
It might.
It might be this one.
It might be.
So you never know. But I don't know. I feel like I know. You keep saying there's one that I think I know who it is.
I think you know.
But do I think I know that you know that I think I know?
Easy way. Good.
I think I do. If you get to that pick, say you're going to make the pick, and then ask me who it is. See if I guess it right. Okay.
Like I said, there's someone on my list I don't plan on drafting.
Okay.
But they're on my list because I want to say them. That's the person I'm talking about.
Okay. I think I know who it is. I think I know who it is.
All right.
But I'm not. We won't say it till afterwards.
No, we won't.
I think I know who it is. I'm pretty confident in this one. I haven't been a whole lot confident in our drafts before, but I think I know this one. So I'm feeling good about it, actually. All right. So, and then the rest of you can vote on it if you want.
Yeah, well,
and, tell us how dumb we are with our drafts or something like that. So, but I think my list. I don't think any of these guys are on your list. Now, when you went to, did you go with a little bit of like, okay, which movies you like the best, or
A little bit, but I also try to get a variety in there. I didn't
Yeah.
everybody knows. Look, I like Major League. Major League.
You don't like it, you love it.
Yeah, it's my favorite movie ever. But my list isn't just entirely everyone that played in Major League.
I feel like we have the same number one manager.
Yeah, probably.
So that's where the strategy comes
that's when
into.
the strategy comes in. Who
Is that manager, that number one manager, so much better than number two? That's the question at hand, right? That's the question. So, which one? Which one do you go?
Yeah. How do you value it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you value pitching or hitting?
Or managing?
Can good pitching slow down good hitting? Or will
Depends
it not?
on who your pitcher is, right?
Right.
So, all right, this is gonna be interesting. Here's the thing: I almost want you to have the first one, so you make that decision for me.
I'm kind of thinking the same thing.
I'm like, oh, there's a tough one there because I don't know. How confident are you that we're not gonna? Okay, I think I got it. I think I'm good. I think I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay. All right. We got a couple minutes left to the top here. So again, Brewers, you can catch out. They're back in action. Catch the games all weekend long on the radio dials of 105.1 FM, 790 AM. First pitch for tonight's game is going to be at 7:10. Then 3:10 tomorrow, 1:10 on Sunday before they head out for a road trip. 4 games against Colorado. Kind of weird they have a night game on July 4th, I thought.
It is.
7:10 first pitch.
Yeah.
But
that's all right.
Then they go to the Dodgers for 3 games. Another good litmus test for that.
Yes.
For that Brewers team for that game. Looking forward to that. I know no Mookie Betts or whatever, but
they're
still
the Dodgers.
They're still the Dodgers, exactly. And Ohtani and
question for you.
Yes.
How much money should that bat boy that caught that bat from hitting Ohtani get? Like he should get a nice bonus.
Right.
Because he saved that team $700 million.
Right. If you don't know what we're talking, look it up. There's a video.
There's a video. There's a bat boy for the Dodgers who made this awesome snag on like an errant bat.
Barehanded.
And right behind, because Ohtani was like right behind him.
Yeah.
And just like, whoosh.
Yep. Yeah. Promote that guy.
That kid's got like he should have like a job he goes from bat boy, he'll be Batman one day.
Well, I mean, it's not a bad job to be bat boy, because the Florida Panthers GM, do you know this? Used to be Brewers bat boy.
I did not know that.
Yes. He went to law school at Madison, so I'm assuming he had
the connections.
A job over there. But yeah, the Florida Panthers GM used to be a Brewers bat boy. How about that?
Yeah. Runner up for my cream of the crop, like hockey. Like that, I mean, that game 7 Monday was great. Like it didn't have to be high scoring. Like the ratings were really good for it, so people cared. Like, no, good for hockey ending on a high note there.
Is he from Whitefish Bay too, I think he's from Whitefish Bay, it says here. Let me see if I can find a little bit more here. Yeah, while attending high school in Milwaukee, he served as a bat boy for the 81 and 82 Brewers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
How about it's right on his Florida Panthers
I
bio.
learned something today.
You're welcome. So, all right. Have a good weekend. Have a good week, because I'm not here next week.
Me either.
You think?
Sometimes.
We'll be here. We'll be back July 8th. Be good. Talk to you later.